All right, thank you and welcome. So we will get through our agenda today. Hopefully we'll have a quorum. If not, we'll still go through stuff at least. But let's do roll call. Stoyan, do you mind taking roll?
So before the roll call, John will take over the building code tag. He made his debut last week with the fire code. He did great. So he is fully capable of doing the work. So I'll give him the stage and I'll be attending the meetings and I will help if it's needed. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Can you guys see the screen with building tag members on it?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So I want to update this as well as we go through it, because I believe this is a little bit out of date, especially when you'd mentioned Will. So I will go down the list. Andrew Klein.
I'm here.
Charles Calvano. Sue Kaufman.
So give me a second, John. Andrew, you said Charles also will be the next official, right? I think I saw the email.
Yes,
so we won't be counting Charles into the quorum.
That's true. Yeah, thank you for that catch.
Right.
Charles is hoping that his Wednesdays free up within the next couple weeks so he can join again.
Okay, perfect. Sue, are you here? Sue Kaufman?
I'm here.
I thought I saw Mark. Mark, are you here as well? Mark Sniffen?
Yeah, present.
Okay. Corey Thomas,
I'm here.
welcome. Chris Seaman.
I'm here.
All right. Robert Graper. All right. Todd Bayeruther.
Here.
Nice. Special Agent Mike Barth.
I'm here.
All right. I like that it says Special Inspectors Testing Agent. In my head, I always see Special Agent. Damon is not here. Will is ex officio, like you said. So Sean Carlstrom. Not here. Al Spalding.
Here.
All right. That gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have a quorum.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So next up, we will look at the agenda and approve it. You know, I did get an email that we would move some stuff around as once we start going through the code change proposals, but that's no change to the agenda itself. So I'll take a motion if there are no changes.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Thank you.
This is
And
Al. I'll second.
thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? And motion passes. So let's do the minutes one at a time. So we'll do the June 9th summary minutes. Pull those up. And take whatever time you need to look through them and then make a motion if you feel so inclined.
Chris, I'll move to approve the June 9th minutes.
Thanks, Chris.
Second.
Thanks, Sue. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? And motion passes. So what was it, the June 23rd? Here we go. So take a look here.
Andrew, I
And-
think I was not there. I was rafting. So I should not be under members in attendance. And I'm assuming that the Chris Simmons listed under members absence is me.
No, I believe there's a,
Is there a Simmons?
I think there
I don't
was
think there's a
something.
Simmons.
No, there isn't. I'm not sure what that is. Yeah, I'll
That's me.
correct that.
Good catch. Thank you, Chris.
Weird. Simmons. Yeah, I'll fix that.
Mhm. Any other?
And this is
Yeah.
Mike Barth. I was actually there.
Okay,
Yeah, I think I was too. This is Al Spalding. I was about 4 minutes late, so I probably missed roll call, but that's the one you didn't have a quorum on and canceled?
correct.
I was there.
Yes, and with you, we would have it. We just missed you twice.
That's okay. You asked, I answered.
I'll correct that.
Okay. Any other mods?
I move to accept the meeting minutes with the corrections as noted.
Thank you, Sue.
I would second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And all those opposed? And motion passes. So now we get into the fun stuff. Todd, you had emailed me about your code change proposal. Do you just have the one down here with the thicknesses for CLT?
Yeah, that'd be it. So thank you for entertaining.
Okay, yeah, let's do that first, and then we'll go down the list. If you've got specific ones you want to get done earlier or later, even if you're a member of the public, let us know. We can probably be very flexible. So,
Okay.
All right.
Are you ready, Andrew?
So,
let's let
what
John
is the-
pull that up.
Which one are we starting with?
It was
63.
GP 1-63. There we go. Okay, floor is yours, Todd.
Okay, thank you. So I submitted this under my role as a adjunct research professor at WSU in the Composite Materials Engineering Center. This is something we've been thinking about for a while since the introduction in, I think I get this right, 2015, with the introduction of CLT in general. These were some of the first editions, and then obviously with the Type 4 changes in Chapter 6, what this raises the question of for discussion is definitions in Chapter 2 refer to Chapter 6, which says then you shall meet these performance requirements in Type 4, ABC, so forth. And then it says, and I don't know if that's the exact language, but it kicks you to additional prescriptive measures in Chapter 23 that historically were for what we now call Type 4 HT. So the first three, if you scroll down just a little bit, most of this is kind of cleaning up what I would kind of consider sloppiness, just in terms of nominal versus actual. In CLT, we don't use nominal thicknesses, we use actual thicknesses. So a lot of these changes, we're not making changes to what was in there, just clarifying 3.5 inches in actual and just trying to be consistent. The one piece that could be debatable is in chapter, right there where the cursor is, 2304.11.3.1 is saying moving from 4 inches actual to 3.5 inches actual. And the justification proposed here is meeting equivalency or exceeding prescriptive measures already in if you scroll down in what's already there for, let me get this right here, is it for decking, right? For 2.5 inch decking and so forth. So that's the proposal here. We can discuss that a little bit. Backing up a little bit, the need for this is that, and I've tried to do as much due diligence as I can with members of on the ICC, with, on the tall wood building ad hoc committee, with AWC and other building officials, in the state, and no one can give good justification or remember why. So if anyone was part of that and has more justification of why this wasn't addressed, the best I can get from it is just they didn't want to deal with it during all of the other actions that were taken and members are taken. So the need for this, to get to the point here, is by not allowing down to 3.5 inches, it eliminates common metric sizes of 90 millimeters and 100 millimeters. And it also blocks out some other mass timber types, such as nail laminated, dowel laminated, glue laminated, that would use standard, 2x4 stock. So I'll stop there if there are any questions or initial comments.
Okay, thank you, Todd.
Todd, this is Chris. The only thing I can think of would be heavy timber. All the types of construction with heavy timber kind of assumed to be 1 hour or so, right? So
Yep.
I don't know if you're aware of any fire testing on like the nail laminated stuff or the dowel laminated stuff that is a 2x4 nominal lumber. Has it been tested? Do we know that it's equivalent-ish?
So the short answer is, if we were going to take a technical approach, yes, and it doesn't change either performance requirements that are in Chapter 6, and I hope I'm saying this correctly, or eliminate the opportunity to and obviously all these manufacturers are doing their fire testing anyway. That said, the justification proposed here is that it's equivalent to or exceeding what you see right here in 2304.11.3.2 sawn or glued laminated plank floors, 3 inches nominal in thickness, covered with 1 inch, tongue and groove flooring, or 1/2 inch, structural panels. So, Chris, absolutely the right question. That's what I was trying to raise here is, would we be comfortable proposing that it's equivalency to what another prescriptive measure that's already in the code, or are we going to raise the question that we should take more of a technical approach and come to it, based off actual research and testing? So, perfect question.
Maybe another silly question, Todd. Did you coordinate this proposal with WABO?
No, not directly. Asked around. I'll be very, very direct about that. So I'm raising the question. And that could be the action we propose, right? To bring in
Todd,
more.
it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, this is pretty conservative. Any of the concerns I heard raised, would, if anything, would probably lessen the requirements?
Yeah, that's my opinion, but
Okay, that's kind of how I see it as well. So. And would you like this more liberal, or this is what industry, wants it to be?
well, this is coming primarily from my representation on the manufacturing side, that this is blocking out, without further justification of why it's 4 inches actual. This is blocking out a lot of products from both North American and European manufacturers for this requirement that it shall be 4 inches.
Todd, on
And are there sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was going to say that section is specific to cross laminated timber.
That one is
Mass.
absolutely. Yep.
And so it wouldn't really impact dowel laminated or nail laminated,
Correct.
right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
I'm just using that as an example that,
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep.
Cool.
but that's absolutely correct. That this section specifically is CLT only.
And Todd, this wouldn't create a situation where only a single manufacturer would have this product, correct?
No, not at all. In fact, because right now what it's saying is that, and I you know how these committees go, right? And I wasn't there back when PRG 320, which is the standard, was originally established, but there was 1 or 2 manufacturers, there were lumber people in there. They said, of course, it's going to be made out of 2x6s, right? And probably not a lot of consideration for metric sizes, European sizes, or that anyone in North America would take that leap and start cutting rectangles differently from circles.
Todd, is there anything similar that went to like ICC for like the 2024 codes?
My no, not to my understanding, 2024, and my understanding is to the best of my ability to ask actual members on they just punted on this during the Tallwood, to the ad hoc committees. But if anyone was there, please add to that story. And you know, and if there's concern, then we just need to raise the question, you know, to AWC or others to let's go do this work. That's a perfect solution too. I mean, I think the bigger question I would raise here is does it really need to be an and, you know, back in chapter 6, that we have to have these additional prescriptive requirements if we're dealing in the new type 4 A, B, and C, right? But I didn't want to open it up that much.
I guess, I mean, to me, we're being like less conservative, right? Because it's not as thick. Am I missing something?
On that, just on that one, nothing,
Oh, on that
exactly.
one.
Nothing changes on the 2.1, 2.2, or 4.1, if I'm remembering correctly. That's simply cleaning up the language so it's all consistent. On 3.1, it is proposing from 4.0 inches is presumed there to 3.5 with that other justification with other prescriptive.
And the reason for that is to allow more products to be used. Is that?
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you say 4.0 inches in North America, which is 102 millimeters, 90 millimeters and 100 millimeters is a standardized product in Europe. So literally, you're pushing alternative.
Okay.
You know, and so they're forced to then either upsize, which is not obviously is a challenge from cost effectiveness, or create a new product.
So us USers are trying to force people into on a standard for us that's actually not really actually the standard, because it's less than that.
I assume it wasn't intentional. I could see strategies, 10 years ago that if I own a lumber mill that I'd want that, but no, I'm not accusing anyone of.
Yeah, I have a good friend from Macedonia, and she's always like, yeah, it's like, 30, it's so hot out here, it's like 30 to 40 degrees. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like always talking in Celsius, and I'm like, or how much she weighs. Oh, I weigh 40 grams or kilograms. And so yeah, us USers have a hard time, not thinking the world revolves around us. And anyway.
It's showing up on projects. I am seeing it where the specification is getting complicated because of this. So
Do we think we're ready to call the question, make a motion? Keep things moving along. Todd, would you like to make the motion?
if it's appropriate, otherwise I was going to abstain, but
yeah, you probably should abstain. You're
Yeah,
right.
I will.
Okay.
Todd, would you be okay with us pushing forward the 3 that are, in my brain, no-brainers? And then maybe having a chance to just connect the dots on the 241131?
Yeah, that's fine. I think, I think that makes, just cleaning it up helps a little bit, but by excluding floors, that would be a, challenge overall. But if there's more discussion, absolutely want to kick it to the committee or
Okay.
other. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I certainly don't 2 millimeters. I think if there was a way to put something friendly in there to get 100 millimeter product incorporated, I think that nobody's going to get, I'm not excited about 2 millimeters, but the 90 millimeter product, that's different, just generally. And I don't know all the background on it. So
Sure. And maybe Chris, if there is some concern, I think it's perfectly fine, proposal to say, let's kick this and try to get AWC and others to research this and weigh in from a technical standpoint. That's not the,
Sure.
not the proposal here, but I think that raising the question is important.
Yeah, or if there were some way to, at the end, say, I mean, there's always alternative means and methods, but there have been other times where we've put in the code, like for solar stuff, we've put in, make sure you're open to alternative means to try to encourage building officials to be open.
Yep.
And so I don't know if there would be a way to put something in there that said, you know, this is the standard product, but if it passes these tests, it's okay too. And you should be open to alternatives.
And maybe that's it, Chris, right? Maybe it's just to make sure back in chapter 6, it actually allows for an E119 alternative or something, right? Very directly. 1 hour or something like that, right?
I think that'd be best, yeah, to leave things open. You know, this is such a complicated piece anyways, CLT and new. I think, you know, it needs to be much more prescriptive there, where at least points to a test.
And maybe
Okay.
that's what we could do, is just tag that right on the end, leave what's in the base code, but then right at the end say, this section does not intend to exclude any product tested to ASTM E119.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think it's probably more than we could resolve just talking here. And if we need to dig deeper, a little side, you know, committee looking at this. Again, if it cleans it up for type 4, A, B, and C that are already given performance requirements, and it doesn't change for the IRC or for, you know, type 4 HT, then that's probably fine too.
But Chris, did you want to amend your motion or keep it?
Oh, I didn't move nothing yet, but I'm ready to, I guess. I don't
Okay,
know.
go ahead.
So Todd, I mean, what would you prefer, do you think? Would you like to move the 3 forward and not the 1, or would you like to just kind of add a be open-minded building official friendly note there?
Probably the latter, if those are the two options.
Okay.
Or just whatever the process would be to say we need additional work at the committee level.
Okay. I'm okay with whatever Andrew thinks makes sense then there. And I'll put whatever that is into words.
Let's punt it for the committee level, Todd. That gives you more time to think about that and come back instead of putting you on the spot. I think, yeah, you've got a couple different paths forward there that accomplish what you need, as well as keep some of the conservatism that we already have with thicknesses. Would you be all right with that?
Yeah, I just thank you for the discussion. That's really raising the question, and then I'll do some work for the committee.
Okay, so I don't know if we need a motion, John.
Well, we will need one, and I was going to ask you, sorry, John, to cut you off, but so
Okay.
we need to understand how to file it for the standing committee. If the TAC members vote on this proposal to move it forward for the standing committee, we will keep it as is. But if you want some changes, then we need to clearly understand what changes in order to file it.
Can we move it forward as is with a note stating that it's still being worked on? You know, and that it's it's the TAG's understanding that you know, it will be cleaned up later in the process.
That would work.
Basically, a note of concern for 11.3.1. Yep.
That'd be my recommendation. So.
Yeah, and then that would allow for discussion at the building code council.
Yeah.
Which probably makes a whole lot of sense. So I move to do that thing that Andrew just discussed.
All right, thank you, Chris.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Sue. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all those opposed? And motion passes.
Abstain. Yep. Thanks.
Thank you.
which one did you want to move to next?
Let's just go through in order at this point. And like I said, if anyone wants to get to a specific one sooner, if you've got to jump off, whether you're a committee member or member of the public, please feel free to speak up. And,
All right. So 65, I don't have a
Well,
word document for.
No, 34 is the first one.
I'll go back to 34. Okay. Very good.
And 34, it was suspicious for us because the proposal is in red and we don't have 34 being done and discussed the last time. So if we have if we had a discussion on this one, if somebody remembers, this is the only one with the proposal in red. So I wasn't sure why.
Oh, well, I think this one got submitted by me. So just me not understanding the process. So,
Okay.
and it's yeah, just deleting that section of the code. Basically, the requirement number 4 in live work is, having not more than 5 non-residential workers or employees are allowed. It's an unenforceable requirement. And so, we are proposing that it's, the area, the maximum area, 1,500 square feet would just automatically limit the number of people in there. So you don't need this code section.
makes sense to me. Any questions or comments on that? Thoughts?
Sue, would we run into any trouble with, I'm thinking bathrooms? Like, can a live work unit be a cafe? And if so, if your occupant load gets up to 30, now you need a second bathroom for the customers?
Well, again, occupant load is based on square footage. So the restrooms, you could have a cafe for a live work. There wouldn't be anything preventing you from that. In fact, that kind of, sort of is the whole concept of live work, what people used to have their little shops or coffee, little restaurants, and they used to live in the upper portion of the unit. So I would say, again, there's no need to restrict the number of workers or employees in the code, because there's no way you're going to enforce it anyway. So you're enforcing it with your square footage. And if the square footage is such that, your occupant load is a certain number, based on how the use is, it's calculated based on square footage. So.
Yeah, I guess I was just getting at, if there was a live work unit and it changes tenants, they don't need to come get a permit from us for a change in occupancy, because it's still just live work. It's R2. No matter what they do in there, it's still R2.
Not correct. Change in use requires a permit. So yeah,
The
if I
use is
had
still
just a
R2
little
though.
retail and I was changing it to a coffee shop, then I would be required. It's not a change of occupancy, but it's a change of use within the occupancy category. So yes, you would need to get a permit.
Okay.
This is Mark. I tend to agree that this is not enforceable, particularly when you look at the fire marshal's role in it, because we do post occupancy loads in A occupancies, but we don't in other ones, so I don't know, I don't see any fire marshal trying to police the number of employees or workers.
Yeah, and I'm just not really sure why you would have the limitation anyway. They're not going to come in and say, hey, are you a worker here? Are you not, you know, how many of you work in here? and just let the let the square footage of the space dictate, the square footage and the use dictate how many people are actually allowed in there.
I agree with Sue. This is Mike. I'd make a motion that we accept this.
Thank you, Michael. Any, is there a second?
This is Al. I would second that.
Thanks, Al. Any further discussion?
And I'll abstain since it's
Right.
my motion or my
Thank-
proposal.
Thank you, Sue. Any further discussion that we've not discussed? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. And motion passes.
All right.
All right, which number was that? Sue or John? Do you remember?
That was 34. We're on to 36 now.
3 or 4. Okay, did we? Okay, we already took care of the first couple. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect.
36 is Lee Krantz, if he's here.
Yeah, Lee or anyone else representing Wabo? Or
I'm with Wabo too, but if Lee is not here, I could try to cover for him.
yeah, if go ahead. Thank you, Sue.
Okay, so there's been a lot of work trying to figure out what a high-rise building is, and you know, a lot of these residential buildings, they want to put they want to use the roof. They want to have some use of the roof, but they don't want to turn it into a high-rise. So you know, this is a proposal to define a high rise with an occupied roof with an occupant load of 50 or more. So any other use of a high rise, you know, a roof, excuse me, any other use of a roof would, you know, if that was a level that would actually, that floor would be a high rise, you would not count that as a use. And this is going, there's a lot of proposals in for the 2024 codes at ICC. And this is sort of a, you know, there's some proposals that, you know, any kind of occupancy of a roof would trigger you into a high rise if that level was at the high rise level. You know, there's this one is, you know, like 50. I think I've seen one like 200. So what is that? You know, we think this is the Goldilocks of you know, occupant load of 50. It's kind of a reasonable number that's not a lot of people up there on the roof. And so, you know, having 50 people up there would not trigger an occupied floor, which would not make the building a high rise. So.
So I've got one question just for discussion, and I'll preface it, I guess, with I hate slippery slope discussions. So maybe my concern is not valid at all. But one thing, for example, I know that a lot of times occupied roofs, there'll be an assembly occupancy, you know, for assembly of, you know, maybe residents or other occupants of the building. Do you think that this could, and I know that's exempt currently, do you believe that this could potentially morph into not allowing the assembly occupancies based on height, the height tables? You know, if we start counting them as occupied floors.
No, I think, well, yeah, okay. A true assembly is going to be an occupant load of 50 or more. So you are triggering yourself into a high rise. So, anything less than 50, an assembly type use, like, hey, me and 48 of my friends are going to get up there and we're going to have a big party or a small wedding or something like that. And that's not going to be that's not going to trigger high rise use because we're less than 50. So.
Yeah, Andrew, I think that's the reason for the number. It would not be an A.
Yeah,
type
we don't want
assembly
to,
if
we
it's
don't
less than
want
50.
assemblies. We're going to call assembly, in this case, well, we're going to call a true A occupancy is going to trigger it as a high, it's going to be an occupied, floor that would be counted as occupied per the high rise definitions.
All right. Yeah, I guess my question was outside of the high rise. Even if you had an occupant load of 100 calculated, because it was an occupied roof, it would not be considered that separate occupancy. So for example, based on the construction type, if you're only allowed 3 floors above grade, and you're on the roof of a 5th floor, that, I'd hate
I
to.
understand. Yeah, I understand what you're kind of getting at. Do you have to call it instead of an R occupancy type of use?
Yeah, I'd hate to have that morph.
It is an A.
Yeah, I'd hate to have that morph into that way because there've been no safety issues with that. And, as you mentioned, a lot of people are doing that on the roofs, which, is a valuable thing. Building.
If it's if it's a horse, I want to call it a horse. If it's a cow, I call it a cat. I want to call it what it is. And so if they are using something for assembly use, I would call it as such. But that kind of gets into some other issues and that are not addressed in this, because then you have to look at, can you have an A occupancy for the type of construction? And, you start looking at type of, that's more of an issue of type of construction and how many floors you can have. And so, again, I think that's kind of maybe where that 50 occupant load has come from is allowing, non-assembly uses, in these buildings that are wood frame construction, like a 5-1 hour, and being able to use that for, some sort of non-assembly use on the roof. So for those buildings.
Okay, and then last question, if you can answer it quickly. The high rise requirements, I know that has a lot of internal requirements for stairway pressurizations and other stuff, which, wouldn't really mean too much on the roof, other than, as people are exiting. So I guess question is, are the high rise requirements that applicable with people being in the open roof area? Does that gain much safety?
Well, again, one of the biggies is the pressurization of the stair shafts and so yeah, that's the generator. There are a lot of high-rise requirements that do get kicked in, and that's where it didn't seem fair to say 0 people, or 1 person will trigger high-rise requirements if you have them on that roof. So, but again, by limiting it to 50, you're not going to allow a giant wedding party of 250 people up on that roof, or a big 4th of July party where they're shooting off fireworks up on the top of that roof. So there needs to be a reasonableness about how many people could really be up there on that roof, and not to, again, high rises are not going to affect roofs. Requirements don't necessarily affect the roof itself that much, but it does affect a lot of the rest of construction of the building. So where is that through sweet spot? Is it 0? 1 person, you should automatically require all these high-rise requirements. Is it 50? That you can have a normal use of that roof by the residents of the building going up there and sun tanning and doing their gardens and things like that. Or is it, something bigger like, 300 or something like that. So what Lee Krantz is proposing, and I think it's on behalf of WABA, but he's proposing something, somewhere in the middle. The Goldilocks is, 50 seems reasonable. So
All right.
at least it's
Thank you,
putting a
Steph.
number out there where we don't have anything right now. So it's putting a number. You might have some building officials that say, 1 person up there, and you might have other building officials that go, well, it seems reasonable that you should be able to have a few people up there. So give them a number, give them something to, use. And it seemed reasonable that 50 was maybe that number. So.
If anything, it's actually even permissive, because the original language, building with an occupied floor, well, technically, if you have 20 people up there, that's an occupied floor. And so by allowing up to 50, it's not necessarily a higher cost. It's allowing this additional space to be used within those limitations.
And not calling it a high rise. And
Exactly.
and again, I've experienced these questions, and it's like, well, it seems reasonable. You could have maybe 15 people up there. I would like to have the state, have something, that makes it equivalent for all the building officials to, instead of one being a very conservative building official and saying, you have 1 person up there, I'm calling that a high rise. So this is good. It gives the state, an ability to make it equivalent for all the the whole state.
So this is Todd. Are these primarily happening in 85-foot height limits and 85-foot zoning zones? I'm sorry.
Yeah, maybe.
That's kind of irrelevant. Yeah.
It's usually, those, 5/2s type, wood frame buildings that are slightly over the, I mean, that their occupied roof would be over the 75-foot limit. But yeah, maybe they're within 85 feet zoning limit. So they're trying to max out their, I mean, they're trying to always max out their number of floors. And more and more of these, denser residential developments, they want some sort of amenity, and a roof amenity is a great amenity for these people to use. So they're already using them. We've got a bunch of them out there, and they want to use these, and they don't. And is it really that much of, again, is it really that much of a risk to, let people go out there and use the roof, other than maybe fireworks and things like that? But, anyway, they're already using them. I'm just going to say that.
My thoughts are, so I won't be voting unless there's a tie, but so I'll put my thoughts out there. I don't like that it's in the definition. So we've got a requirement in the definition, and then I don't see any problems yet. I don't see it as permissive, because currently it would not be considered a roof. And you've got all the type 5 construction, especially podium style, where you wouldn't necessarily have the top floor at 75 feet or more, but the roof would be maxing it out. So I just think it's overly conservative personally, but those are my thoughts.
Andrew, I would agree with Mike Barth that it is permissive. Currently, most building officials would consider an occupied roof a floor, and most fire officials would also. I don't know if who else is supposed to be on here. I think Corey's here, isn't he? I think he also would be. It would be.
So we're definitely consider that an occupied floor.
Yep. So it is a more it's more permissive. So personally, I'm fine with the proposal. I would want to amend the economic impact statement to say that there is no economic impact in the negative. It is allowing the use of that. It's allowing a more use of a building without extra cost. So it's a positive economic impact, not a negative one.
Okay. Is that a motion, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
And then, actually, Andrew, can I make a point of order? We do have public on, so I want to make sure we're giving them an opportunity to comment.
And I had a comment on this, the economic impact statement. The way that kind of reads, it looks like that definition would go retroactive, or it would, how would that interact with the IEBC when you do that definition? Would you not have to also go to the existing building code and make a statement that it's not retroactive to buildings? Question.
Mark, I don't see that as being a huge issue. It would, the definition would be the definition. It would only apply. There are a few cases in the IEBC where high rises, existing high rises, have different requirements than other kinds of buildings. So if there was an existing building with an existing occupied roof that met this definition of high rise, you would apply a different set of rules during remodels, but you wouldn't have a retroactive go back and do something without doing other work already to the building. Does that make sense? Does that help your concern?
Yeah, kind of. And I just wanted to make sure that it didn't impact the existing building code. Basically, would that definition be exclusive to the IBC? Or where would that be amongst the other codes?
I don't think it would, again, this is for, new construction. Somebody, a building that already has their certificate of occupancy has to meet the requirements that they were given as issued. And if they were allowed to occupy the roof of, with 300 people, then they're, as long as they continue the use of their existing certificate of occupancy, they're allowed. I mean, there's a lot of terms that are in the IBC, they're not also in the IEBC, and high rise is, again, only, this is a definition that's in the IBC that is not in the additionally defined in the IEBC.
But my point, I think, was when they said some buildings may need to add fire safety systems to it. If you scroll down, they're saying the cost may go up because some buildings would be pushed into a high-rise category. So
Well,
to me, that means existing buildings would be pushed into a category. I don't understand that statement quite clearly.
I think that they're indicating a building that, okay, so what sometimes happens is these buildings are out there and they want to start using the roof for some sort of occupancy. So this is, if you change the use per your approved certificate of occupancy for an existing building, if you had no use of the roof before and you want to change that use, then you would need to comply with the new requirement.
I think the word building in there would have been better if it read projects. It's not in, I don't read it as being intending to apply to existing buildings. It's, the definition will place some projects into the high-rise category that may not have other been. But even then, I think the, flipping it to looking at it as more of a permissive thing, even then, I don't think it would really apply that way. And your existing buildings, like Sue said, if there's an existing one that has a 300 occupant load on the roof, so be it. It's approved. It will always be approved because it was approved under,
right,
different setting. If it's an existing non-conforming based on a new code section, then they may not be able to expand that use in the future, but it certainly wouldn't cause anything to go back and have to retrofit the building as a high rise.
And I don't think that this proposal was, you know, in that comment, I don't think that I think they're referring to new projects. So some buildings, some proposed buildings would have to be high rise, be defined as a high rise. So I don't think that he was referring to existing buildings.
Can you scroll up to the, yeah, there we go.
Well, if nothing else, from an order standpoint, I guess I would second Chris's motion.
All right.
Did Chris make a motion to accept this with a amendment to the economic part of it?
Yes, he did.
Okay, thank you.
So Mike, that's what you're seconding?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Do we have any members of the public that wanted to talk?
I guess everyone spoke.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? And motion passes. So next up.
All right. Number 37, looks like it's also Wabo. Let's see, who's this? Oh, CWA.
Okay, so yeah, let's open this up for discussion. Do you want to scroll down? They're basically striking out an exception for water fountains not being required with occupant loads of 15 or fewer.
It's Mike Barth again. I worked with Rich in this because it's something that both of us had run into several times. Really, it's just a cleanup of this because I don't have it open in front of me, but essentially the other section is the 30 figure. And this just conflicts with the other Washington State Amendment.
So the Washington State Amendment says if it's 30 or fewer, you don't require a drinking fountain. Is that what you're saying?
I believe that's sorry, I wasn't prepared to speak on it.
More. Okay, this section also changes the minimum number of occupants where drinking fountains are required from more than 15 to more than 30. Okay, so yeah, it sounds like that's
Yeah,
consistent.
it's just a direct conflict.
Okay.
In
Any further discussion? Seems simple. And members of the public, feel free to speak up. And we'll take a motion.
So I'd move to approve this.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll
Second.
second that.
Thank you, Sue and Chris. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? and motion passes.
All right, next up, looks like number 56.
Okay. I know folks aren't shy here, but just as a reminder, if you need a bio break or anything, speak up. I'm going to try to push through this. You know, well, we'll see. I guess maybe in another hour or so. You may just take a break anyway, but if you need one sooner, please speak up.
This is Chris again. I'm sorry, Lee Kranz.
Okay, Sue, are you familiar or, you know, I don't want to put you on the spot if you're not familiar with all the Lees.
I am
That's okay.
familiar with it.
Okay,
And,
do you mind explaining?
I'm sorry, I will cut you off, but there is another similar proposal. So if we can have the other one ready too. The other one is, let me see, what number was it?
58.
58, yes. If we need it.
Is it by Wabo too? Who's the
Yes.
other? Oh, well, maybe he made some modifications and
The same intent, just different approach.
Can you guys see that side by side?
Yep, we can.
Huh. Well, I know about the proposal with Lee for the lateral location. It's actually a really, it's a good proposal because while there are, you know, there are requirements, you know, height wise and stuff like that for the handrail, there aren't locations about how far away that handrail can be. And I guess there's a situation that, you know, Lee had a project where they wanted some sort of, I don't know, skateboard little channel alongside, you know, the stair. And so the handrail was actually on the outside of that. And so and he had pictures of John Sue's granddaughter and, you know, other people trying to reach really far over to grab a handrail that was too far away, you know. So yeah, they're just trying to put a requirement in that the handrail cannot be, you know, too far away from you laterally.
Sue, is there anything in the ANSI standard that would already require it to be within a certain reach range?
I am not sure about that.
I don't think so.
In my understanding, when I thought Lee spoke on this briefly, you know, he explained that situation, Sue, and said that the builder basically said, well, show me in the code, you know, where I have to change it. And,
Right.
you know, there's nothing there.
So, and it's, you know, a picture speaks 1,000 words. I mean, you see this little girl trying to reach way over to grab this handrail that's on the other side of this little section where they, you know, wanted, you know, some sort of, I don't know, skateboarders can skate down this. So it's between the stair and where the actual handrail is. And it's, you know, somebody having to reach way over to grab a handrail. And it just, again, yeah, apparently there isn't anything in the code. So it's, it seems very odd. So there should be something in the code that, you know, says the handrail has to be, you know, within a certain distance of the actual stair, edge of the stair.
No. Any comments, any unintended consequences you can see from this?
Just curious, does that have anything to do with intermediate handrails? Would that affect that at all?
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, this is handrails located outward from the edge of the walking surface. So you know, it's pretty clear that it's on the edge of the stairs. It's not intended to restrict where those, I mean, those intermediate handrails, I think it's more specific.
If I recall too, there was, I remember, well, I don't know if it was a WABO meeting or or what, but somebody had some pictures. I thought it was a stairway somewhere in Europe where they had like this 12 to 18 inch wide kind of ramp type thing on the stair at the edge of the stairs for people
Right.
to roll their bicycles up as they walked up the stairs. And what it did is it pushed the handrail 18 inches away from the stairs, which made it essentially useless. You know,
Right.
unless
Yeah, it's too
unless you
far
were
away.
walking on that way too steep ramp at that point. So
Well, and again, you know, if you have somebody with any kind of disability where, you know, trying to stretch their arm out to grab a handrail across, you know, some section
yeah,
of something, it just, you know, it just, and it looks like, you know, again, Kim Parlberg, I think, well, no, maybe that was the other proposal, but anyway, yeah, it to me, it's, you know, for you know, smaller stature people or children, you know, for people who with disabilities, you know, I mean, you know, if you have a long wingspan, you know, maybe it's not that big of a deal, but
yeah.
if you're smaller in stature and it's just, it doesn't make sense for the handrail to be so far away.
I think for the sake of discussion, I think I prefer the way that the CWA one came in from Rich, just from a numbering standpoint. I liked it that it's just a new section instead of a new subsection.
Oh, yeah, maybe that was what he just put it in a different format.
Yeah, it just seems cleaner from a
It's the same
formatting standpoint.
exact language, isn't it?
Well, the first one on the screen has a second section with the projections, which I don't believe the other one does. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's
Mm.
the separate cleanup, it seems to me. that
Yeah,
I'm not
Rich
that worried about.
might have been working with, I think Rich might have been working with Lee on this and probably submitted it as a cleanup to Lee's to help him out. So
Yeah, and I think we could even view it that way. I think we could accept Lee's and then essentially accept
both of them with
Richard's,
yeah, as the
for the numbering sequence, because I agree with Richard's on that, because in 1014.2, you know, that's specific to height, and we're not really talking about height. We're talking about, you know, that lateral location, which really does seem to warrant its inclusion with as another subgroup, along with, you know, graspability, continuity, fittings, extensions, so forth.
I think I've got what that is if you're ready for something, Andrew.
Just one sec, John.
Yeah.
John, do you mind expanding the one on the left just a little so we can see that? Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And then scroll down just a little. I was reading the projections, width of stepped and ramped aisles. Does this take out requirements for aisles which are not on ramps and ramped aisles that are okay? It's just it was already in the first sentence. Okay. Yeah, Chris, go ahead. Actually, let's make sure no members of the public have anything to say. Alrighty. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Okay. I move to move forward to the BFP section 1014.8 of proposal GP 56 and the entirety of GP 58.
Second that.
Thank you, Mike. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? And motion passes. So let's see, 62.
Used sawn lumber. And Kathleen Petrie.
It doesn't look like she is on. Anyone associated with her that wants to speak, or otherwise we can go through it together. All righty. Let's see, is this enforceable code? So was this put through in legislative format? Or are these? Okay, here we go.
We have the same requirement in the residential code.
Okay. Any comments on that? So this is identical language, Stoyan, to what we've got in the IRC.
Yes.
So this looks pretty prescriptive, which makes sense for the IRC. Do we need it in the IBC?
Is the intent of this to make sure we're not making assumptions that the wood is stronger than it is? Is that
That's
what the
what
intent
it-
is?
It's what it looks like to me. yeah.
Okay. So it's to help people like me who aren't SEs understand what I should guess it is.
Right. I think it makes sense maybe to have an exception, since a lot of commercial construction will have an SE in it. You know, you'd have the performance-based approach there that's damped. So that's why I said it makes sense in the IRC because it's prescriptive. Does it make sense in the IBC?
Well, I would say, I mean, my opinion, yes, because there are a lot of prescriptive requirements in the IBC. And there are, there's, big projects that don't need that, but, there are a lot of very small commercial projects that could benefit from this. So, it's good to, it's a sustainability type amendment, so I'm supportive of that.
Okay, I'll just play devil's advocate once. I don't want to spend too long on simple things, but from the sustainability point of view, you could over design too, putting up more wood, which I guess is a carbon sink. So maybe that's good.
Could we easily throw an exception in there that said wood that has been graded by, I don't know what the proper term is for it, but somebody comes out and says, this is what it is.
Yeah, I like that. And Todd may know when he jumps back on. He had a meeting from 11 to 12. But yeah, it looks to me like it could use an exception. But
yeah,
let's
or it's a
see.
number 2 there. Comply with one of the following. 1, it's assumed to be junk. 2, it gets graded by somebody and it's good.
Oh, I like that approach. So feel
Could
free
that
to.
be forwarded? Could this, be accepted and then, added as an amendment and then forwarded on for?
Yeah.
Andrew, do we need the
approval?
specific language or can we do it in just the intent of what we want to
No,
say?
let's do it with the intent to keep everything moving along.
Cool. So then if you're ready, I can put something together, I suppose.
Yep, go for it, Chris. Thank you.
Okay. I move to bring this proposal to the BFP with the following amendments. Insert item number 2, some kind of statement regarding grading by a professional.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. And then as a friendly amendment, it will say comply with one of the following, which you had said earlier.
Yep.
You want me to put the specific language in here now, or is that something? you want
I
to-
I think we don't necessarily know what the proper standard to which it would be graded is. So, we'll need a little time to look into that, but
Yes, sir. Okay.
As a point of order, can we check again the attendance? I'm not sure we have the quorum now.
sure. Go ahead, Stu. Or John, I'm sorry.
I can read through again.
Thank you.
All right, Andrew is here. I can see you. Charles Calvano, ex officio. Sue is here. Mark, are you still here?
And Marcus
Still here.
alternate. Marcus
Mhm.
alternate. So
I know they don't count as two.
Sue or Mark, one of them
Thanks.
can vote.
Corey Thomas,
Here,
Chris Seaman.
Here.
Robert Graper.
Present.
Nice, okay. Todd, he left, I believe. Mike Barth
Here.
and Sean Carlstrom. Still not here. Al Spalding
Here.
here as well, so 2, 3, 4. We still have a quorum.
We are good. We're good.
Great. Okay, any discussion on the motion that's on the table, adding a to be proposed number 2 and changing it to comply with one of the following?
I'm not opposed to it. Chris, do you think that's not really covered in the part, the
That first part, I think I just saw that same
first
thing you're
part?
seeing, Mike. Yeah. Maybe that already is taken care of.
I mean, this here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right there. Because that includes pre-cut, remanufacture, or rough sawn. Granted, that's 3 inches and larger, but it seems like that's usually what I'm seeing reused is some of these old timbers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm supportive either way, and I'm respectful of the opinion too that I'm not sure we really need it in IBC, but I can see having it there because there are those prescriptive uses, and it doesn't seem to harm anything. Really what this is doing is saying, yes, it can be used. We're going to assume that it's the weaker of available species.
But I
Yeah,
guess the point is it is the grading language is in 2303.1.1.1 because it's saying not meeting the requirements of 2301.1.1.
Yeah.
So it's saying that if it doesn't meet those grading requirements, then so you probably don't need that. I would agree.
Yeah, I think I'm convinced too.
Did you want to modify your motion, or should we vote on it and then make a new motion?
I'm okay with modifying it or whichever way.
Yeah,
we're
let's
supposed to do
modify that.
All right. Then I guess I would say it doesn't make sense for there to be a list then is what I'm going to say, because there's only one thing on the list. Right? Does that sound like good code language? You don't have a
Yes,
list of
actually,
one things.
That's very true.
I mean, right
So I
here.
would, yep. So my modification would be to strike everything after 2303.1.1.2, beginning with shall comply.
Strike all this.
Nope, sorry. Above, we're going to figure out how to just make that part of the statement. So it's going to be 2303.1.1.2,
Mm-hmm.
and then it'll be,
You're saying you don't
Sorry,
need that used solid lumber. I mean, you would just say used solid sawn, delete the rest. dimensional lumber in good condition and devoid of areas of decay. That has, you know, a nominal thickness, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think you've got it, Sue. I'll let Sue go ahead and do
Yeah.
it.
So
She's
just
got it.
delete all this.
No, don't delete all that. So
No.
under the used solid sawn lumber, keep that title
Mhm.
and then say used solid sawn dimensional lumber, add dimensional in front of lumber. In good condition, devoid of areas of decay, so keep all that. And then from there, delete the not meeting requirements, delete the rest of that to the, yeah, delete that. And then delete the number 1 through lumber.
Through there.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sue, do you think we need the not meeting the requirements of those 2 subsections above?
Yeah, I think if you just put that in, just like
up
we've got it here, but after decay, a comma, keep not meeting the sections, yada, yada, 0.2, comma,
Yeah,
that has a nominal thickness of 2 inches. I think then that works. And it
okay, yeah.
I'd agree, yeah.
it keeps the, you know, that added piece that, you know, it's not enjoined, it's not certificate of inspection.
John, that makes sense. After the 2, put another comma and unstrike that up top. So not meeting the requirements of those 2 sections.
Yeah, so undelete that.
Yep, great.
Right here.
Up
No, up
on the
above.
sec.
Decay, after decay in that upper section.
Oh, up here.
No. In
No,
23.
down where you
back
put the comma.
Mhm.
So, okay, so you're there, then move over to the right after the subsections that are listed.
So keep those
Yeah,
I'll keep all this here.
right to there.
and put a comma after what you just,
Ah, okay.
beautiful.
And that's good.
All right.
I think that works.
Alrighty. I think we've got a motion on the floor, correct? On the table, floor.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so let me open up for discussion if there's anything that hasn't been discussed yet. Otherwise, I'll give it a couple seconds while you save this
Just
time.
from the smart SE people, does that last sentence make sense to you? The all other dimensional lumber shall be assumed to be hem for number 2.
We
kinda
may
think-
not need to say it in the IBC, but
Mark, are you gonna comment?
I was questioning, wasn't this taken verbatim out of the IRC and it's just being introduced to the IBC? And it was accepted in the IRC the way it was written? Or-
Correct.
Yes.
So why wouldn't we keep it matching between the 2 codes rather than changing it?
Any other comments? All right.
Dimension is with an S, not a T.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't see that. Yeah.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
I
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. And motion passes. Thank you. See if they were up to 65. You've moved on to masonry veneer from wood. Congrats.
And 65, I do not have.
63. We have 63.
So 63 we did first.
Yep, we did that one
Oh,
first.
yeah. Okay.
65, there isn't a Word document in here, so I've got this. So I may have to take notes. No problem though.
Alrighty.
Who's this one?
This is from Todd Young.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Tom Young, I am present.
Oh, thank you, Tom. Do you want to describe?
Sure, be happy to.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. This deals with the mortar requirements for adhered masonry veneer. It's a real growing segment in the masonry industry, and being that it's different than anchored, we don't have physical connections to the structure. So the veneer relies on bond to remain in place. The system works fairly well, again, very popular system, but when we have seen failures, they are primarily the result of debonding of that unit. Could be a tile unit, could be a thin brick, cast type concrete product, variety of types of materials that are permitted to be used, but that bond tends to be the issue. And currently type S and mortar, conventional masonry mortar, is permitted for that adhesive bond coat that we're calling code language the setting bed. And the fact that that's permitted is probably the primary reason we're seeing some of these failures. What we'd like to do with this change is move kind of forward. There's a lot of new advanced mortar materials. They're latex modified, polymer modified, that have much higher shear bond capacity in the range of 400 PSI versus the current code requirement of 50. So we think this is a way to get at the issues that we've seen in the field with some failures with this type of system and really upgrade the system. So we'd be eliminating the use of type N or S conventional mortar, which was an option now, and requiring the latex modified, polymer modified mortars for all adhesive bond coats for these systems. And this change will likely, it's going through the TMS is the reference standard here, the masonry code 402602. It's going through that process now for the 2024 IBC, and they are also planning to put this change into the next edition of the reference standard. So I'd like to get ahead of the curve in Washington State and get it in this 2021 IBC edition. And there's we have another technical expert online if you'd like to hear a little more about the background of this or the products that are available.
Okay, thank you, Tom. I'll let other folks decide if they need more information or have any questions. Any and public too, if you have any additional comments or concerns, please speak up. And I'd entertain a motion as well.
Point of order. I just saw something that we missed when we were accepting the proposals. Under item 7, is there an economic impact? It's shown no, but there is no explanation why it's no. So if the proponent can share the opinion now and send us something that we can add to the document, I will really appreciate it. Usually we needed to catch this upfront, but we didn't.
Okay.
Thank you, Sir. Tom.
Yeah, let me address it briefly, then I'm going to call on John Gallup with Laticrete. So the mortars themselves will cost somewhat more, and John can speak to that point. I will be happy to. I didn't realize with no you needed an explanation, but I'd be happy to provide that. But where the savings will come is on the labor side, and that's why I indicated that the combination of the labor savings with the increased cost of material would balance out. But John, do you want to add to that?
Certainly. Good morning, all. To Tom's point, where the polymer modified engineered materials that we're proposing in this change that meet the 118.4, 118.15 standards as indicated, would have higher materials cost. There's a profound savings in using these materials in regards to the labor, just in terms of more efficient working characteristics, far greater pot life, open time, adjustment time with these materials as it compares to a Type S or Type N mortar. The real part of the discussion is the fact that the Type S, Type N mortars that are being used as a bond coat for adhered veneer masonry are insufficient in providing that adhesive bond, whereas the 118.4, 118.15 materials are in fact formulated to provide this function. Not to dive too far into the weeds on the whole discussion here, but think of it more as, even though it's specified, this assembly is specified in Division 4 masonry, the assembly itself mirrors more of a Division 9 tile assembly, and we don't in the tile world use Type S or Type N mortars as a bond coat. For this reason, we would see a high degree of failures, as we are in the masonry world, when we try to use these materials that are simply a separation layer and not an adhesive bond coat, a glue to hold a thin veneer masonry material. So for that reason, we're proposing this change to the polymer modified engineered materials, which are a dedicated bond coat. And I'd be happy to field any questions.
Thank you, John.
I had a question for you, John. Are you talking about the setting bed? It seems to me like that would be the initial coat rather than the bonding bed. Is that two different things?
It is, Mark. Thank you for the question. So the setting bed can continue to be either a Type S or Type N mortar as the setting bed that encapsulates, let's say, a 2.5 pound per square yard diamond metal lath in a conventional lath scratch assembly. The linchpin to that assembly, however, is the bond coat, and that's where we're seeing the failure. So we can still bond to a Type S, Type N based lath scratch system, provided we're using as that bonding mortar, the glue, if you will, a 118.4, 118.15 material. That's going to be the difference between success and failure. So yes, in answer to your question, those are two different components of the assembly. We do, and I think there's an item here in the proposal. We do see latex Portland modified engineered bedding mortars being provided by a range of manufacturers, but we still see a high degree of Type S, particularly Type S mortar, not so much Type N as the bedding mortar. But again, the difference between success and failure is using that 118.4, 118.15 adhesive layer to attach the thin veneer masonry.
So just for clarity, then the scratch coat is the adhesive coat you're talking about?
No, the scratch coat would be the part of the bedding mortar. So you'd have your lath scratch system as the sub-assembly. The adhesive coat is the 118.4, 118.15 latex Portland modified mortar as the adhesive coat.
John, I think part of that, what Michael's bringing up there is, I use the terminology that's going to be in the TMS code. And that's where they're referring to the setting bed as the same thing as the bond coat. And I think if you look at the change here, it could be worded differently possibly, but the proposal that's working its way through the masonry committee uses setting bed and scratch coat as the two terms of mortar types that we're talking about here. So we're saying the scratch coat could still be type N or S mortar. We just don't want it to be used for the setting bed or the bond coat, in other words.
Yeah, and that's where I think there might be some confusion here, Tom, is in this assembly, the scratch coat / setting bed are synonymous. The component that is the adhesive layer is the bond coat that's bonding to that scratch coat / setting bed. I guess what I'm trying to say is the scratch coat is our setting bed for the sake of an adhered veneer assembly. The 118.4, 118.15 material is our bond coat that's bonding to that setting bed, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. However, like I said, it doesn't track with the TMS proposal in that table that NCMA developed.
Is there possibly a way to include that bond code into the language, or scratch code / bond code?
Yeah, we could certainly do that.
Just to differentiate the scratch coat from the bond coat, I think would be
Well, I
a
think
relevant approach.
Yeah, setting bed or bond coat would be the two that would be synonymous then.
No. The bond coat is not synonymous with the setting bed. The setting bed is what we're bonding to with the bond coat.
So it does need to be modified then.
It would appear so.
So the bond coat shall comply rather than setting bed. That would be the change right there. Remove setting bed and replace it with bond coat.
Yeah, correct.
Can we suggest that change, Mr. Chairman?
Of course. Any other questions or discussion, comments?
I do have a quick one. Just how many manufacturers are manufacturing the A118.4, A118.15 product?
Lots.
Well, that's the good answer. So
I know just off the top of my head, Mark, there's the big three. And then there are, at both a national and regional level, there are probably 20 to 25 manufacturers minimum of ANSI 118.4, 118.15 materials manufacturers.
So is this going to exclude any other kind of common product out there with the exception of your generic type N, type S?
No, absolutely not.
Well, that's good since you're representing the industry.
Very true.
Any other questions or comments? All right, and from the public. So you heard the proponent's request for that slight edit. If anyone wants to make a motion, I'm happy to entertain it. Sue, you
Oh.
look like you might either have a
I'll make a
question or
motion
wanna
to
make a
accept the proposal
Okay, as is, or with
as,
the modification that the proponents asked for, changing
Yes.
mortar bed.
with the
Okay.
modification proposed.
Okay, and Tom, just to be clear, we're changing mortar bed to bond coat.
Setting bed, right, 2103.2.4 there, Andrew. Where we say the setting bed mortar would be the bond coat mortar.
Bond coat mortar. Okay, got that, John?
John, does that sound correct?
Well, yeah, I would just ask that we don't have a Word document. I can't correct it. So I'd have to just ask that you'd send it over if you make that adjustment.
Okay.
Thank you, Sue. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Al. Any further discussion?
Are we gonna see the revised language along with the revised economic statement?
That's my understanding. Yeah, Tom will send that in as a Word document, correct?
Correct.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please say nay. And motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And let's see, 66.
Next, yep, 66. So Sound Transit.
This is a big proposal, and Lee Kranz asked if the council can establish a ad hoc committee for this one, and the council has the power, but we need to discuss this at the TAC meeting. So again, it's a big proposal. It will take I think significant amount of time to go through.
Okay, so what is your recommendation? And I assume that 67 is the same, so 66 and 67 together, or is that not the case?
I don't think it was the case, but let me check. There is another proposal from I think it was Lee Krantz, but I need to check it.
67 is, I'll pull that one up just to look
Yeah,
at it.
66 and 67 are, yeah, the same proponent. So I mean, it's up to you, Andrew, if you want to spend the time now, or we can target the rest of the proposals and leave this. I don't have a preference.
Yeah, let's target the rest and leave this. So are you in agreement that we should put together a separate group to take a look at this?
Well, only the council can do that, but the TAC can recommend it.
Okay, let's make that recommendation. If people are okay with that, do we need a vote for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we can do something else. So when we get to this proposal, when the TAC members start discussing this proposal, we can make the recommendation for the council. Let's go over it one more time. I'm not familiar with the proposal itself. I just had a discussion with Lee Kranz, and he suggested that this is a difficult proposal to discuss, and it exceeds my knowledge. So I cannot recommend anything right now based on the technical requirements in this proposal.
Okay. So, okay, so let's move on then to 73. And it looks like Todd's back, correct? Okay, I asked him a little later too. He's back on, but maybe he's still on his other meeting. All right, so from John Sue. And Sue, or are you familiar with this, having worked with John, or should we go through it together?
I'm somewhat familiar, but not quite as familiar. So
Okay, well, it
let's
looks
just run
pretty.
through it together.
Okay, sounds good. So floors. For mass timber floors, floor finishes. Non-combustible.
Yeah, it's just allowing, you know, mass timber, you know, ceilings, you know, you can have non-combustible, you know, mass timber ceilings.
Okay, so it looks like just code correlation to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions or comments? And any comments or questions from members of the public? And as a rule of thumb, the public, feel free to speak up at any time, except I guess after a motion is made and being voted on. Would anyone like to make a motion? Hey, Todd, welcome back.
This is
I would
Chris.
make a
I'd move-
motion to accept the proposal as is.
Thank you, Stu.
I'll
Do we have a-
second.
Thank you, Chris. All those in, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. And motion passes. All right, up to 74.
Lofts.
All right, new definitions for lofts.
This is actually, this is a proposal that actually they've done some other modifications since then with WABO for they're working on a simultaneous proposal to for the 2024 codes. It's a little bit different now than I think when John originally submitted it. I would propose that you know, the more modified version be looked at. So, you know, I don't know if it's a good proposal overall, but there's been quite a bit of there's been some other work, and I don't know. I think this one was submitted a little bit before all this other work was done. So, and we got some input from ICC committee members, and so.
So what would be your recommendation to move forward? I do like the idea of the loft being in there, so you don't have to use mezzanine requirements.
Right, it got modified so that it's a sleeping loft, you know, similar to you know, it's not overall loft. So there are some, I would recommend that that they submit the updated version of this, because it's pretty good. So I don't know how you can do that. I mean, yeah, we want to definitely move this proposal forward, but I think that there's some better modifications that happened in between now and, or when it was submitted and you know, last week, that I think it would be really good to have those incorporated.
Okay, John, how would do we need to make a motion, or can we just leave this here to come back to?
We can table it and for the next meeting. The other thing that I want to say for the TAC members, there is a section for lofts in the residential code, R327, There is also Appendix Q, tiny homes, which has a section for lofts. I assume this will be reviewed for the residential code because we don't want it in two places, and the appendix is adopted by the council, so we have different requirements. They are very close, but there are some differences. And now in the building code, we have another one. So
Right. I can provide a little bit of background on that. So what they're looking at is, you know, a lot of these commercial multifamily buildings want to densify development, and so they don't meet the full requirements for a mezzanine. And so they're, you know, a lot of times they just want to kind of maybe they use, you know, they've got some tall ceilings. They want to put a little sleeping loft above the bathroom or something like that, or the kitchen. And there's some of these areas that it would be great to be able to allow them to use them for residential, but we want it to be done safely, because I think sometimes they're just using them. And so you know, then you get the smoke detectors up there, you get some guards put in, you get, you know, some sort of permanent means of egress. And so just allowing, you know, so not those areas that are not meeting the 7-foot ceiling height, but they want to be able to use these for, you know, useful space. And again, this is, it's a sustainable type of, you know, amendment. You could, you know, use, you know, it densifies the development, you know, affordable housing, you know, you get more housing in one unit. So it's really a good proposal. And, you know, again, they're working on an, you know, ICC version. They got this one in, but we've done some additional work in between them. There are some changes, and I think that the changes would be really beneficial. So it would be good to just push it off. And does the applicant submit like a new version or something like that? Or how do they submit like an updated version of this?
will be a revised version, a revised proposal.
Oh, okay. I'll talk to John about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Stoyan, do we make a motion to table, or it can just be tabled?
No, we'll
Okay.
we'll get back to it the next meeting in 2 weeks.
Perfect.
Okay.
So 77, secondary attachments to structural members.
Yeah, I think this is just another WABO proposal, and it's, you know, just making sure that structural secondary attachments have the same kind of, you know, yeah, where primary and secondary steel members require fire protection, any additional structural steel having direct connection. So it requires direct connection. You know, you don't want to talk about, you know, sometimes it's hard to say what is your secondary steel attachment. So it just additional structural steel members, they're just trying to clarify the language, I think.
So this is saying that the additional, any attachment would have to have the same fire resistance rating as the more stringent one, even if just because it's attached to it.
Yeah, Andrew, I think I've discussed this with somebody. Maybe it was in the fire tag. What I recall being the discussion is that it's a heat sink if it's attached to that structural member. So if you have that primary structural member and you have other attachments to it, whatever's attaching to it is kind of a heat sink. And that was kind of the concern there. So even if, like, for example, some tube that you have welded to a beam is not itself a primary structural member, the fact that it is welded to that beam and unprotected, it's just soaking up heat.
Has that been shown to cause failure?
I don't know, but that's what I remember from the discussion. Sorry. I just
Okay.
remember talking about it with somebody.
Can we scroll down a little bit in the explanation? So they're saying that it's a clarification about secondary. There's a clarification of what was improved in the 2021 IBC.
Oh, and if you continue to scroll down, you can see the committee action. Oh, it's not in the Word document, but it's in the PDF document. FS 11-21.
This is bringing in identical language to what was codified in the 2021. Okay, that's a pretty good argument to me.
And it was a 13-0 vote in support for that, it looks like.
And this is, just to be clear, it's 2021, meaning it's been codified, it went through public comment hearing, or it went on to the consent agenda. It's done, it's codified in 2021. Or 2024,
24.
I guess it would be. Okay, so
Yeah.
see if it's codified, but it went through at least. Okay, so we don't know if it'll be in the 2024, just to be clear.
Wait, so this has to do with 2021 codes. Can we scroll down a little? This code change proposal is intended to clarify the application of a new, a new code requirement in the 2021 codes. And it's consistent with something that was approved by the ICC for inclusion in the 2024. So something that's approved for the 2024, they've gone through the committee action hearings and it was approved by committee action. So there's still public comment and stuff like that, but it would be, you know, it's already approved. To get it overturned, you know, to overturn a committee decision, you have to have a 2/3 vote to order to overturn something that the committee has already approved. So
Well, for disapproval, it's just 50%, but yeah, you're right in the fact that it likely will make it through, but it's not a guarantee.
You're right, it's not a guarantee. They are a lot of these proposals that we're looking at are things that are being proposed for the 2024 code. So but you know, it's good if you know, if we think it's reasonable and the state wants to start using this requirement, then we get to test it out a little bit and see if it is reasonable. So
Any additional questions or comments from committee members or members of the public? Would anyone like to make a motion?
This is Chris. I'd move to forward it to the BFP as submitted.
All right, thanks, Chris.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sue. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? And motion passes. Thank you. What's up next? Number 80, materials used in firewalls.
Micah.
Micah's not on, is he? Is there a WABO meeting going on right now? Is that why you don't have some of them? Okay.
I don't know for sure. Yeah, I thought they would be here.
Okay.
I'm not aware of one.
I think this is just to, you know, kind of clarify consistency of the code for, you know, the mass timber. Yeah, adding, and then deleting the R4 because we don't have that in the groups. And then again, adding, just allowing that there's for mass timber. Type 3 and 4 are required to have firewalls. Limiting the makeup of firewalls to non-combustible can result in problems for the taller 3 and 4 buildings. So yeah, it's provides some consistency for mass timber buildings.
Okay, so it actually opens up the code to more options. Correct.
And it would open up to type 3 buildings also.
I think somebody has their hand up, Shaman.
Yes. Yeah, we have a hand raised.
Oh, yep. Please go ahead, Shamim.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can. And please correct
Yeah.
my pronunciation if I mispronounced it.
No problem. It's Shamim Rashid Sumwa, and I'm representing the National Ready Mix Concrete Association. And as a member of general public guests, I wanted to share some perspective on this proposal. Just wanted to share that there was a proposal with similar intent that was introduced as part of the ICC Group A codes development, the recent committee action hearings. What this is doing is to permit firewalls to be constructed of primarily non-combustible materials in types 3 and types 4 construction. And the committee actually disapproved this proposal. Their decision was that there was some uncertainty regarding performance of mass timber as a firewall, and they chose to be careful rather to give non-combustible, to put combustible construction to be permitted as an allowance for type 3 and type 4 construction. So although there have been some tests completed, the testimony showed that there was some difference between the fire resistance testing that's been done for protection of mass timber construction versus sort of the structural fire performance that's required for firewalls such as building separation assemblies to allow buildings to be considered as separate and distinct from one another. So we would recommend similar caution as the committee found in the ICC process, and ask that you reconsider to maintain firewalls be constructed of, continue to maintain that firewalls be constructed of non-combustible materials.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from members of the public or committee members?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Tom Young, Northwest Concrete Masonry Association. I would support Shamim's comments. It is a pretty major change. We're redefining firewalls that now are only approved use of non-combustible materials, allowing these exceptions to that definition. So it seems like a fairly major change to me. And it seems like one of the main reasons for doing this is difficulty with controlling shrinkage in dissimilar materials, but that can certainly be done through proper detailing. I don't really see that as a reason for reducing the fire resistance of firewalls.
Thank you, Tom. Any other comments or questions?
This is Chris. Does anyone happen to know the filing number of that proposal at the ICC hearings, so we could see how that went?
Yeah, we have that. Shamim, if I'm right, it's FS 31-21.
Yes, that's what I have noted as well.
And that was from the, right, yeah, FS 31-21. And it was disapproved on a vote of 8-5.
Any other questions or comments? my personal feeling. It's materials consistent with the types of permitted construction or with the type of construction. So I lean toward a firewall being a firewall, but that's just my
Yeah.
my thoughts.
Especially, we'll just seeing it the first time here. It's the type 3 would typically have a non-combustible exterior wall. A firewall is not an exterior wall, but I would be hesitant too quickly. I would like to hear more from the proponent on it.
All right. So if we table this, does anyone have an issue tabling this? So that we can hear from the proponent. Sounds like that will be our path forward.
Is it possible for, well, since I'm not very good at finding the stuff at the ICC, can staff help us find that committee action?
Sure.
I'm not very fast at that, so, and I'm probably find the wrong one. I know my limitations.
Thank you, John. If you need help too, reach out to me.
Yes, sir. Okay. And that was, let me make a note.
So now up to 81.
Sorry, taking a note on that to make sure I can research it. Okay.
And let's see, after this, we'll take a couple-minute break. It has been 2 hours, just like a 10-minute break, unless anyone needs more. So think about how long of a break you need if you need more than 10 for after this proposal. So, all righty, toilet and bathing facilities. Again, from Micah. So this deals with single-user toilet rooms.
So, this is one where I know Tacoma's dealt with this a little bit, where they're putting in gender neutral facilities, and there's a desire to reduce the number of, so if you put, one male, one female, or you put male and female toilets, you would have to, and you're only required 2 toilets, both of them would have to be accessible. However, if you were to redesignate each of those as gender neutral, then only one of them would need to be accessible. And it was pretty mixed on the, ICC committee about this. So, because they said, well, yeah, that's meeting the requirement. One of them, only one would be need to be accessible. What is being proposed is to have, is that you would not be able to reduce accessibility because, we want to provide as many accessible facilities as possible. So this, again, it was mixed with the committee, and I don't think it got approved because they disagreed. They said, well, just, whatever is meeting the accessibility requirement is meeting it. And so what, if you change to gender neutral, then you get, then it's fine. You have less accessible facilities.
I like this proposal. Just last week, I had a review of a facility where instead of the male female, they had a total of like 3 water closets required for each. So traditionally you'd have a male restroom with 1 accessible toilet and then the other 2, same in the female. So you'd ultimately have 2. Their proposal was 1 family restroom that was accessible, and then they had no accessible features in the gender neutral that had 6 or 5 or 6, the remaining number of fixtures. And my thought was that did not satisfy the intent of the accessibility requirements. What's being proposed in this change would have solved that. By, originally you'd have at least 2 accessible water closets. And with this language, you'd still have to have at least 2, regardless of whether you were using gender neutral or not.
Yeah, I just have this example of, you have a busload full of kids and, they're stopping at some restaurant, and just say, for instance, the whole busload full is, male and female, and they all have a disability. It's a bus for, some sort of disability, a group that has a disability. So they all need to come in and use restrooms. And previously, with separate male and female, then, if there were 2 restrooms, male and female, in this restaurant, they, you could have people using restrooms, at the same time. But if they're both gender neutral and only one of them's accessible, then, this whole busload full of people who are disabled, can only line up behind the one disabled one. So whereas they would have had 2 options before, based on gender, but, just throwing that out.
This is Chris. The only comment I have is
accessibility by not requiring them to have just as many accessible as before. But ICC committee did not necessarily agree with us. So,
Chris, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I feel like I agree with the sentiment and intent. I think there's just something missing with the sentence. It reads a little weird to me at the end, where it says the total number of accessible fixtures shall not be less than the total number of accessible fixtures for separate male and female rooms. It seems like required should be in there or something. Does that make sense?
I'm trying to picture this too. Can I ask one question? Maybe required solves that. If we have at least, it says at least 50%, but not less than 1 room for each use. Would it say if we put at least 50%, but not less than either 2? Is that the issue, that you have at least 2 private ones? Because otherwise, once you get above that 2, because males and females are, you assume 50% usually, it doesn't matter past that point. Is that, I'm trying to picture when you would have that problem otherwise.
Well, you'd have to add the exception of, where your occupant load was less than, whatever that number is, where you only need 1 restroom, period. But, maybe that's, again, it's really only, the situation where you have just 1 of each, where you're getting that problem that.
1 of each, where only 1 of them is accessible.
Yeah, if you had 1 of each, male or female, both would be accessible. But if you had replaced each of those stalls, or each of those individual restrooms with gender neutral, then you could say, well, and this has happened in Tacoma. Well, I don't have to, now I can make this one not accessible because I don't need it to be accessible anymore, because my one that I need is accessible. But that concept of minimum of 2 accessible could work, I guess.
Yeah, I will like that. That would be more clear to me. If that, unless someone can think of an example where this solves an issue with more restrooms are required. But if the issue is when there are 2, then.
Oh, good. John came. Thank you, John.
I'm diving, sorry.
I'm like struggling trying to explain all your proposals here.
My proposals? These are my.
Yes.
Yeah, this one here. Andrew, I don't think just the 2 would suffice. I think that if you get an odd number, and I don't have good examples because I haven't, I only just joined the call and I haven't thought this all the way through. But I think when you have an odd number required, then it gets a little weird, right? So
But that-
I'm not certain that just the 2 would solve it.
Even though it says at least 50%, because then if you have an odd number, you'd have to round up, go to the next one.
Yeah.
So that's why I see when you have 2, then, or greater than 50%. No, at least 50%.
Yeah, no, it'd be at least, and maybe, yeah, you would still have to, as Sue pointed out, write that exception in there. Then that says if you're only required to have one, we're not requiring you to add a bathroom, right?
So it'd be,
Right.
you would have a minimum, at least 50%, but not less than 2 rooms. Well.
But not less than 2
total.
rooms, right, with an exception if only a single, if only a single user toilet room is required, then it alone needs to be
Well,
accepted.
by
That's
the
where I think
way,
that- I was gonna say,
I'll throw in there that I think there's a difference between required and provided. I think that I think the code, and I haven't had time to look through this. I think the code says that when you provide the number of facilities, then this is what you're required to put in based on what's required, based on what's provided, not necessarily what's required.
yeah, just like parking.
Yeah. So I'd be careful with the required language there.
What I would suggest is that
more
it starts
sense?
with,
Sorry, go ahead.
oh, it starts with where multiple single user toilet rooms are provided. So that already takes care of our concern about if they just have one.
Ah, very true. So let's say at least 2.
What I would say potentially here, and it takes some word smooshing, is that where multiple single user toilet or bathing rooms are clustered, at least 2 shall be accessible. And then additional accessible fixtures shall be provided at a rate of, and then reference the section that says, however many you have, then you get another accessible one. I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but
it can't be more than 50%. It wouldn't be. So I think
it wouldn't be.
covered.
No.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
then I say if we change just the 1 to 2 and delete that other sentence, we've solved the issue that you're trying to solve. Would that be correct?
You would say 2 rooms for each use. So if you do, because this applies to both the neutral, the gender neutral and the male and female. So I think if you start combining that first sentence, thinking of gender neutral, but you've got the separate male and female, I think you might be adding there.
then
If you
maybe
say
it's
2 for each use, right?
Yep. Then maybe it doesn't make sense to smush. You're either going to be providing gender neutral bathrooms or you're going to be providing male, female bathrooms. So maybe we
Where
should
I
just
was
have the number
going
4.
was wouldn't this sentence just make more sense to take it, instead of attaching this to exception 3, shouldn't this be like the last sentence of the charging paragraph? And then it solves that because you're not limiting it to the single user toilet rooms either. You're not affecting the clustering situation.
Well, this is talking about the fixture types inside the restrooms. So how would you, can you give us an example of the language?
It would apply more broadly, essentially to everywhere, that regardless of your restroom situation, you don't reduce the number of accessible fixtures than you would have had. And if that sentence, that new sentence, was just at the end of 1110.2, so dispenser in each accessible toilet room and bathing room shall be accessible, period. Where rooms are designated as gender neutral, the total number of accessible fixtures shall not be less than the total number, yada, yada, period. And then exceptions, 1, 2, 3.
Ah, what do you think of that, John?
I think that might work. I'm not able to consider all the possible
Yeah.
permutations there, but yeah, no, I think that would be helpful. I mean, you kind of get the intent there, at least, that we're trying not to reduce accessibility, right?
Yeah,
True.
we're not
Well-
trying to target the single user ones. We're trying to say across the board, you can't reduce the number of accessible fixtures.
So what if we make that change? This would be my suggestion if everyone's okay with that. We make that change, push it forward, and then we still have an opportunity to massage that language. So John, it gives you time to put together different situations, make sure there are no unintended consequences. So that'd be my suggestion. But if there's more discussion or questions, feel free to discuss.
Sure. Okay, this is, let me write myself a note. Okay.
Anyone from the public too have any comments or questions? I think my dog might have a comment. All right, anyone want to make a motion?
Well, I'd make that motion then to move this forward as at the end of the charging sentence, as opposed to including it in the exceptions.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sue. Any further discussion? All those in
Does-
favor?
Does that
Yep,
limit
go ahead,
us?
Chris.
Does that limit us? Can we move it forward just in the spirit of the proposal? And then we can decide where we like it?
Well, I was thinking we'd move it forward as that, and we still have the BFP committee to
Yep.
massage it as well.
Okay, just the way that way that Mike said it was to move it up. And if we decide we don't like it in that spot, does that limit us is my only question. And if it doesn't, I don't care.
No, there's no limit. We can
Okay.
change it, at the next stage. But this just keeps things moving.
Cool.
Okay, any other discussion?
Now, and if John comes up with something that might change that, I assume he'll share.
Yeah, sure. And that would go to the full council, or as public comment, essentially.
Well, you can bring it to us at the BFP committee meeting, the next one. I think we've got a few months until we meet again as the BFP. So you've got some time
Okay.
to take a look at that.
Okay.
Andrew, because John is here, that one we talked about with the fire protection, can we just get some of John's comments on that? I don't know if, I know we said we could.
Yeah, we
table
can
it.
go back. Let's take this vote quickly.
Okay, yeah,
We'll
sorry.
take either 5-10 minute break, and then we'll go back. Is that okay, John? That works with your schedule? If we take a break prior to that?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, any more discussion on this? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And motion passes. So I was thinking maybe split the difference between 5 and 10. We'll take a 7-minute break. I've got 12:20, so 12:27. Anyone need more time than that? Okay. We'll resume in 7 minutes. Thank you. Cameras here. Thank you, John. Thanks, folks. Should we do a quick roll call to make sure we have a quorum?
Sure. All right. Andrew is
I'm here.
Sue Kaufman. Did she leave? I saw her. Sue, are you here? What about Mark? Mark Sniffen?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Corey Thomas,
I'm here.
Chris Seaman.
Here.
Robert Graper. Is Robert not here? Todd Bayrither.
Here.
Am I saying your name right? How do I say your name?
Yeah, Bayrither. Close
Bayrither.
enough. Thank you.
Much better than me.
Mike Barth.
I'm here.
All right. Sean
I-
Carlstrom. Let's see
I'm
what we
back,
can-
John,
Okay.
sorry.
All right. So yeah, and then Al Spalding,
Here.
you still here? Okay. So yes, we still have a quorum. Sure.
Okay, Sue, do you remember which number you wanted to go back on that was John's? And John, Sue, are you back? Yes, okay, I see you.
It was the one about the fire protection for
Sure.
it was,
The firewalls?
yeah. We
It was
I can't remember.
77.
Number
Okay,
80.
okay. The
77.
secondary members?
Yes.
77? Okay,
All right. We'll pull that one up.
thank you.
This one, 77.
You'd have to pull it up for me to remember which one it was.
Yeah, let me share that screen. Would help if you could see.
It was about non-combustible materials.
Oh, maybe it was the firewall one, that was 80. So this,
It's probably
Right, it
firewalls,
was-
but that
It was the firewall one.
okay,
Yeah.
77 passed, 80, I think we tabled.
Oh, you're correct. Sorry. Yeah.
okay. John, any comments you want to make on?
This
This
one is
is-
this what I'm seeing on the screen is the we're back on the gender neutral.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
John, are you able to pull up 80? There we go. Perfect.
There we go.
Yes, that's the one. I just, because, John is here, he's a little more familiar with some of the committee actions on this. Just wanted to
Yeah.
have him talk a little bit more about the reason why we would want to do this.
Yeah. Well, first of all, this did not get approved by the committee or the corresponding one at the ICC. So that's still up in the air. But the reason for doing this is so you don't have to worry. Well, for us anyway, and when we were doing this in Seattle, one of the big things is, of course, type 3 construction that we've been seeing a lot of for the larger buildings. And this would require a non-combustible wall. The difficulty you get into structurally is that your difference in materials. If you have a firewall that's a different material that, it's running up to a, in our case, could be as much as a 6-story wood frame building. There's differential shrinkage going on. So your wood frame is going to shrink differently than the concrete will, or the whatever steel that's in the firewall. And so we've decided that that's not a good thing to happen either. We've been doing this, well, I shouldn't say we anymore, but Seattle has been doing this for a very long time, goes all the way back to essentially area separation walls back in the UBC days. Where there was no limitation on this. So we've Seattle amended the code some time ago to go ahead and allow these. In fact, I will admit that at some point when we switched from UBC to IBC, we totally missed that it was this change was made, and so we were going ahead and enforcing just a wood frame anyway. We believe it's a reasonable thing to do. It's better for seismic. It's better for, again, as we say, differential shrinkage. So those are the main reasons I think we're submitting this one.
Thank you, John. So I guess we could make a motion on this. Shamim, you're still on if you wanted to make any comments. I know Tom Young looks like, oh, here's Tom. Yeah, if either of you wanted to have anything to say, we can keep it tabled or we can make a motion. I'm fine with either.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick comment because John wasn't on earlier, but John, I'm Tom Young. I think you know me with the concrete Masonry Association. Our concern, not only myself, but Shamim with the National Ready Mix Concrete Association with this proposal is it was denied at the ICC level. Shamin explained some of the reasons for that. So, we're opposing the change. Also, my thought is, shrinkage, differential movement, we do deal with that all the time with different materials. And I don't think that's a reason to diminish fire resistance of a firewall. Having to deal with differential shrinkage, I think there are other ways around that.
I would argue that I guess I would respond and say that fire resistance is still maintained. You still get the fire resistance rating. So the only difference is what's inside the wall. And I don't think that there's a question of whether you need a non-combustible or not. I would say in these walls, if you have CLT walls, those are going to be very, very adequate. I would say you're going to get their fire resistance ratings, and you're not adding that much to the fire load. That's the whole thing with the difference between non-combustible and combustible materials. You're not adding that much to the fire load in the building. So I think that's not necessary, I guess.
But you are changing the definition of firewalls from non-combustible to something other than that. That seems to be a big change.
And I would just add to what Tom is mentioning, that was the primary concern of the ICC technical committee, is that this has not been permitted for the full history of the International Building Code, even if it may have been permitted under one or more of the legacy codes. But they were very concerned about not necessarily maintaining the fire resistance, but its structural performance as a firewall. So firewalls are not only used to separate areas, but they're also used to separate buildings into two separate and distinct buildings. So there's a performance requirement there beyond just fire resistance, but to maintain that structural integrity as a separation. There was another proposal that was proposed to allow type 3 and 4 construction as a horizontal separation, and that one was also disapproved by the technical committee. So Tom and I really just wanted to share that information, as well as our opposition to introducing non-combustible material into firewall construction.
Thank you. Any other comments? So I will give an opportunity if anyone wants to make a motion, they can, but there's no reason to, since we previously decided to table it. So I will give 10 seconds if anyone wants to make a motion.
Does that motion have to come from a committee member?
Yes.
Okay.
I would actually, I don't think, I just wanted to hear from John in this, and I think at this point, we aren't going to get any more from tabling it. So I would propose to forward it to BFP as submitted. And then they can work it out as to whether to accept it.
Thank you, Sue. Is there a second?
I'll second. Todd.
Thank you, Todd. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? And motion passes. And again, this is to move it forward to the BFP committee. So we'll continue to discuss that. Thank you. Let's see, next up, I think we're on 82 we've got a bunch of WABOs here. Horizontal building separation allowance. And can you scroll down a little bit more, John? So, okay, there we go. So the building or buildings above a horizontal assembly shall be permitted to have group A, B, M, R, or S occupancies. Okay, so we're taking out the requirement that each Group A occupancy have an occupant load of less than 300.
That's correct.
Okay, discussion. Questions?
I mean, that 300, just a little bit of history, that 300 number is another legacy code thing. It goes back to before they changed the occupancy types. There used to be an A3, which was less than 300, and A2.1 assemblies, which were more 300 or more. And back in the old days, this was limited to A3 occupancies. Again, what we've seen is just an expansion of that. We haven't, you've got to type, you know, these things are in, separate buildings. So I think the feeling was anything that these are safe, I guess. That's the main thing. We haven't had any issues with them.
Sure. Personally, I'm a proponent of things that open up the code when you're not seeing any safety issues. Any other questions or discussion? And members of the public too, please feel free to speak up.
I have a comment. Currently, we have a state amendment in this section, so the language as proposed needs to be modified. What is proposed here doesn't include the Washington Amendment, which is currently in 2018. This is based on the model code only.
Okay. Is that easy enough to merge together that staff can do that, or did you want, John, are you the proponent of this one?
Staff can do that. It depends if the proponent wants to include this. I don't know how this proposal was evaluated. Did it include the local amendment or?
This one is another one of Micah's. So I don't know if he considered that. Let me writing myself a note. Because probably another one that we need to take a look at. Yeah, I'm sure he was basing it purely on the 2021 language.
The state amendment adds after group B, there is a comma, and it adds group I1, condition 2, licensed care facilities.
Definitely.
R or S occupancies.
Should definitely keep that. Yeah, so if staff can do that, that would be, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Stoyan. So yeah, that seems like a simple correlation.
Yeah, I'd be happy to make a motion to that effect as well.
Yep. Thank you, Al. Is that clear? We're moving it forward with staff putting in the state amendment. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Sue. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? And motion passes. So now we're up with concealed spaces. So, okay, that's a nice, simple change since it's one word, but let's see if it's got lots and lots of consequences. So number 3 there, the add combustible surfaces.
Yeah, this is another one that was proposed at ICC. Unfortunately, I need to go back and look and see what was the result, but I believe this one did pass.
Okay.
Is the model code not specify the thickness of the gypsum board? The last part of number 3 almost?
It should be in there.
Is it 5/8 inch, do you know? Or,
Yes, in the code, it's 5/8.
Okay.
Probably just didn't make it through the PDF process.
Is there anything in NFPA 13 that this would not be required? You know, because the NF, that's got its own exceptions.
This is specifically for mass timber. So the new types of, so yes, this is the part of the whole TWB process there, and what part of the compromises that were made.
Okay. Any questions or comments from committee members or members of the public?
And I think just if it's relevant, more specifically, it's for the type 4 HT, is that correct? Is the only, it's not type 4 ABC, just to clarify.
This particular one may be, I'd have to go again. I haven't, I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize. I'm not quite prepared for this.
It looks like this 4C to me. That 4 is for type 4C. I think.
Yeah, I could be wrong. This was the, you know, the separate AWC that proposal that was not part of the ad hoc committee, to my understanding. Many people would like to see this in type 4C, but anyway, I'm not sure it's relevant to our discussion though.
Based on the 602.4.4, it'd be limited to type 4 heavy timber.
All right. Any additional questions or comments? Anyone want to make a motion?
I would make a motion to approve as submitted.
Thank you, Al.
Second.
Thank you, Mike and Todd. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And all those opposed, please say nay. And motion passes.
Sorry, do we need to clarify? It had just the slash in there for the thickness. It is 1/2 inch in the code.
Oh, it's half.
We wouldn't.
1/2
it's
inch,
1/2
not
inch.
5/8 inch.
It is.
Okay.
It is. I don't know how staff
No,
goes
it's
about
5/8.
making the modifications.
Chris, I'm reading out of the 2021 code that says 5/8 there.
Yeah,
Nope,
that's what
sorry,
I
you're
have
correct.
too.
You're correct. I'm looking at the section above says 1/2.
You mean right here? Chris, is that what you're talking about? The
Yeah,
section?
that says 5/8. I just didn't want you to copy that over into whatever code language we have, and then we just have a slash there instead
Yeah,
of.
it's probably bad form. Let me just add that in there. Like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, good catch.
All right, let's move on to dwelling unit size. In fact, out in my neck of the woods, one of the Tri-Cities was dealing with that on a municipal level. We had an old, I think it was a Holiday Inn that a developer wanted to turn into micro units. So. All right. So new text dwelling units shall have a minimum of 190 square feet of habitable space. And I believe currently, correct me if I'm wrong, the building code itself doesn't have these requirements. I know a lot of municipal codes may. Is there a minimum?
This is just trying to equilibrate between efficiency dwelling units and minimum sizes for efficiency dwelling units versus regular dwelling units. You know, plus, so you add the two minimums together, you know, for the you had, I think you had like 220 square feet or something like that before. I'd have to look at the specific codes, but yeah, standardizes the minimum sizes for all dwelling units. Whether, yeah, so you could potentially, how the code was before, you could have a 1-bedroom unit that was actually smaller than an efficiency dwelling unit. Because
Okay.
if you put a wall in there and you called it a 1-bedroom unit, it could actually be smaller than the minimum size for an efficiency dwelling unit.
Makes sense to me. Any questions or comments? John, do you mind scrolling up? Okay, it would decrease the cost of construction, it says.
Yeah, I can scroll down to the, yeah, there.
I think that's a little misleading. I think we are trying to close a loophole.
Ultimately, it could. I mean, you're otherwise, if you get a 1-bedroom, then you're required to bump up the size.
Oh, I
think
guess
that's
you're right,
that's what
John.
we're kind of saying.
Yeah, we're closing a loophole and we are being more generous to efficiency dwelling units at the same time. Right? Is that a
Well,
better way
no,
of saying it?
efficiency dwelling units already have the smaller.
Have the 190?
Yeah, the loophole that we're doing, I guess it doesn't allow you to put a little wall up to create a 1-bedroom in an area.
And make it smaller than efficiency dwelling unit.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just trying to make it equal for.
Has anyone seen that?
Yes.
Really?
I've seen people try.
Wow.
We
Okay.
told them no.
Yeah, they'll take a micro housing unit and they will put a wall in and argue, see, now, but I don't need to. They'll separate off a kitchen basically, and they say, okay, I don't need that main room doesn't have to be whatever it is, 120, minimum 120.
Okay. Well, yeah, then we definitely need that change in there. So, any further discussion or questions? Members of the public?
Well, this is Al. I'm kind of curious. So these wouldn't be confused as a dwelling unit or sleeping unit in a licensed healthcare facility, would it? This has a different connotation, correct? Different application.
Yeah, we're talking about dwelling units here. Your sleeping units are covered separately.
Well, I guess from that perspective, I'm probably okay. There likely would be DSH licensed healthcare facilities that might have more stringent requirements than these minimums. And I think we would defer to the licensing chapter in that case.
That's a good point, Al.
I'm not more stringent, but bigger maybe than what this calls for.
Are you talking about from the perspective of accessibility and?
Like assisted living facilities in particular.
So
You could potentially have an assisted living facility in a efficiency dwelling unit, right?
In which case this would already, this requirement would have already been there.
Yeah, this is just making it the same so that you can't put a wall across something, the kitchen and say, well, now I have a 1-bedroom apartment instead of efficiency dwelling unit. Now I'm going to make, I'm going to make it smaller.
I think
So
I'm okay. I think I'm okay with it.
it makes it actually requires it to be bigger.
Perfect.
Any other questions or comments? I'm happy to take a motion.
This is Chris. I'll move to bring this forward to the BFP.
Thank you, Chris.
Second.
Thank you, Sue. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? And motion passes. Thank you. Dwelling, so interior protection, number 85. All right. An exception here for interior protection, interior faces of all mass timber elements, including the inside faces of exterior mass timber walls and mass timber roofs, shall be protected with materials complying with section 703.3. New exception here, unprotected portions of mass timber ceilings, including attached beams, shall be permitted where limited to an area less than or equal to 40% of the floor area in a dwelling unit or fire area. So, discussion, questions?
How does this fit in with the type 4 ABC covering up the stuff? Is this a separate requirement?
This is a type 4A, right?
Okay, so which would normally be cover everything?
Yeah, I thought, okay, yeah, hold on, let me make sure of that though. 60241. So what, sorry, can we scroll up a little bit to see the actual language?
602412 is going to be limited to type 4.
4A, that's type 4A.
We have a hand up.
Oh, yep. Go ahead, Shamim. And feel free to just speak up too. You don't have to be so formal.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, this is actually a proposal for actually allowing unprotected ceilings in type 4A construction. And this was also a proposal that was introduced as part of the ICC Group A codes development earlier this year. There were a number of concerns. Type 4A was intended by the ad hoc committee on tallwood buildings initially to have exactly identical fire resistance ratings as type 1A construction, which is obviously fire resistive, non-combustible. And so type 4A construction was developed to be fully encapsulated, where all of the interior faces of the mass timber are protected and they're not exposed. So you would have now with this exception, significant portions of the ceiling, which would be exposed. So the technical committee did disapprove this. They felt that the change added confusion between type A and type 4B construction. And they felt that there needed to be additional study. There are in this proposal, you can see they reference the Research Institute of Sweden tests. Those actually, that study is still ongoing. The report that's published there is an interim report. There's a number of unanswered questions still associated with that report, and they felt that the 40% allowance was not specifically directly addressed by those preliminary results. So our recommendation is to maintain type 4A construction as fully encapsulated and not to allow this exception to move forward.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments?
Yeah, along that same line. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I see that 40% allowance would be less restrictive than the requirements for type 4B construction, which is 20% of ceilings and 40% of walls, I think. Yeah. So allowing 40% exposed in type 4A would be less restrictive than what is required in type 4B.
Now for 4A, we've got a lower height and area limitation.
No, 4A is the big one.
4A is big.
Opposite way.
4A is the big one. And Chris, I think the other thing that goes with this though is that there is a proposal to expand the 4B as well.
Gotcha. Okay. I was looking if we're going to leapfrog this one over the other kind.
Yeah.
And if I may also, I know Chris, you had asked this information earlier. That proposal number in the IBC is G146 for this one.
Thank you.
May I ask the comment about what is in the testing and the research that was done in Sweden? What remains in the report?
Sure. Actually, there's in the report itself, it mentions a list of items that they're still looking into. If you allow me, I'll just pull that up. But off the top of my head, they're looking at the impacts on exterior facade. There were a number of instances where there were still hot spots in the compartment fires, and they're still studying sort of what the impact is of exposed ceiling potentially on the exterior facade. There is still work going on firefighter operations and identifying where those hot spots, those smoldering areas still are. Also, how to address repairs in case there is a fire incident, how to make repairs on mass timber structural elements. There was also some additional questions as well that are still being worked on. One of the things that I have a question on is in the test plan for the RISE tests. A number of the tests included 3 layers of gypsum wallboard, whereas the ATF lab tests that were overseen by the ad hoc committee only included 2 layers of gypsum wallboard. And of course, the code is requiring minimum 2 layers to achieve the 80 minutes rating. So there are also some questions there about consistency and ability to take those test results and compare them in terms of performance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Andrew, may I ask John or Sue or anyone, are these being, was it already mentioned, were these being proposed for 2024 also? Is this where this is coming from?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the, I think Shamim said that's a proposal G146.
Thank you. I'll just make a statement. I mean, this was on my understanding, I wasn't on the ad hoc, John was, but this was the whole point, to continue testing and making improvements as we go along. So it was conservative from the beginning, that was understood. And so this was always, in my understanding, planned.
Did you want to make a motion, Todd?
I move to forward this as written to the BFB, please.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sue. Any further discussion?
This is Chris. I think, well, I will probably, if we're moving it forward as a full recommendation, I'll probably just say I'll probably go no on it, just because I think it needs a little more look at. I wonder if it would be appropriate to tell the BFP that, you know, we see this as something that is being discussed at the national level, and perhaps it's appropriate to bring it early, but we probably want to wait to see how it shakes out, is how I would feel at the national level, just because I know I don't have the time or the resources to put the work in it that it deserves.
Would that be a friendly amendment or not?
Even if it's unfriendly, that's my reason why I would vote no. Either way.
Chris or Andrew may ask, you know, in the timeline of adoption of this anyway, how does that align with what will happen with the ICC committees?
So let's see, the ICC, we will know, we'll have a pretty good idea toward the end of, actually, it will probably be mid-October after the public comment hearings. And then by the end of the year, around Christmas time usually is when we get the results of the online governmental vote. But like about 90% of the online governmental vote turns out to be what happened at the public comment hearing. So we've got time to get more information. I don't know if by the time things come up, we'll have the final answer. John Stoyan, you know, do we have past the end of December, to make our final determination on this?
The final adoption of the building code is at least what we have in the schedule is for March next year.
Okay, so then we
But
would,
I need to go into detail regarding how a proposed language can be amended. It depends how much amendments we'll have, how much modifications to already proposed language. But the final adoption is scheduled for March next year.
So I just have one comment with, I mean, maybe there's a sort of a friendly amendment. If we are going, if we do approve this one as submitted, it needs to be sort of a package of them approved as submitted, because of if it's less restrictive, this is less restrictive than the current type 4B. If for 4A, if this is less restrictive than 4B, we need both of the 4A and 4B to be submitted and approved the same. So that would be sort of where I would like to put a qualifier in there.
So here is the schedule, and you see the time. We do have time, but the processes will be a little bit more difficult for major amendments. So in October, we're planning to file the CR 102. We'll have time for comments. We'll have public hearing in November for testimony. And the final action is for Group 1 codes will be in March 2022. So this time between the CR 102 as filed and the final action, we have some time, but it's specific to how much to the proposed language we will modify.
so I would recommend people take an actual stance on this. We can make modifications at the BFP committee meeting, but yeah, it sounds like after that we can't make major modifications. So we heard proponents, opponents. We saw, in their reason statement about testing. That'd be my recommendation. But if you want to accept Chris's comment as a friendly amendment, you can. You don't have to. We're going to take a voice call vote anyway, no matter what we do. So. Todd, I'll let you speak since you made the original.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
Did you want to make any comments to put forward or not?
You have to remind me. I'm happy to accept the Chris's friendly. Is that the question?
Yes, if I understand correctly, Chris, you want to make a note that it's still moving through on the national level and that should be considered. Is that a correct?
Yeah, I think so. Or I think maybe what I'm saying is I don't feel comfortable suggesting we move it forward to the BFP for, maybe it's on cycle rulemaking, right? Maybe we would suggest moving it forward for off cycle rulemaking to be done after the national discussion is done on it. Because we brought the original CLT stuff in off cycle, didn't we? And I certainly want to be supportive of the industry and the new materials, but I just know that nobody here, with the exception of John, probably, maybe Todd, you have really put in the time that it would take to understand it completely. And that's all. I just don't feel comfortable voting yes on something that I don't fully have, I don't know that I put the time in on.
Right. That's fair. That doesn't sound like a friendly amendment to me, Todd.
No.
No. One quick question, Chris. I thought I wasn't part of the council, but I thought the original 2021 amendments were brought in on as a formal proposal on cycle. Is that not what you mean?
No, we brought maybe that's what we didn't. Tacoma.
I thought we brought it in the 2018. We just brought it in early.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And in Tacoma, we brought it in earlier than that even. And then
actually, I think the state put it in the 2015.
Yeah, there we go. See,
That was
Ron?
the off cycle was on 2015, brought it up,
Yeah.
brought it, it was still early as
Oh,
far
you're-
as the national codes are concerned in 2018. But it came in, yeah, under 2015, definitely off cycle.
Yeah, everyone's right. That's right. That's my memory too. Retroactive on 2015 and then 2018 on cycle. Thank you.
Any further discussion or questions? John, do you mind taking a roll call vote?
Sure.
Could we clarify that what the motion currently is on the table?
Where the motion on the table is to move this forward to the BFP as is, correct, Todd?
Yes, please.
All right. Andrew Klein.
I will wait to the end if there's a tie.
Yes, sir. All right. Sue Kaufman,
Aye.
Corey Thomas,
No.
Chris Seaman,
No.
Robert Graper. Robert, come back. Okay. Todd,
Aye.
Mike Barth,
I'd have to say no.
and Sean Carlstrom. I don't believe Sean was here. Did Sean come in? Okay. And then Al Spalding.
Sorry, I was
Al?
muted. I was muted. Sorry. My answer is no.
Okay. So 4 no's and 2 yeses.
Could we get a second motion?
Can we, is it appropriate to move it forward for consideration as an off cycle once as a matter of process? Is that possible?
Well, the vote here was whether or not the TAC will move this proposal to the standing committee, and we just have the disapproval. For off cycle, I don't think it's we can take it into consideration, but it's not, I think, for this TAC at this time to move this forward for off cycle, but we'll take it into consideration. We'll keep it on the table.
And I think it can come back in the future after it goes through those others. I think it's just not ready, particularly because well, in my opinion, it's because we're talking about type 4A buildings. We're not talking about the 4B. If it were 4B, it would be a lot easier to let that through, but 4A has that higher level of safety in the surfaces. So I think it's not a bad issue. I think it's just not ready necessarily for a state amendment.
So what we're doing is moving it forward with a recommendation of disapproval, or are we not moving it forward to the BFP? What is?
Well, the BFP and the council can override a decision made by the TAC. So for this proposal was disapproved, it doesn't mean it won't be discussed by the standing committee or the council.
Do we need a motion to move it forward with a recommendation of disapproval, or are we finished?
I thought this was the one.
Okay. Because we voted not to move, the motion on the table is to move it forward, approve, as, it was written, and that did not pass. So do we need another motion, or are we done? I guess is my question.
I would say we're done.
Okay, that works for me. Let's move on to 86. All right. Again, another exception here. Enclosures of occupied roof areas. elements or structures enclosing occupied roof areas shall not extend more than 48 inches above the surface of the roof. Exception are penthouses and in high-rise buildings. Oh. John, or Sue, do you want to explain why, what the thinking is, or should we just read off here?
Sure. No, the whole thing is that goes back to when occupied roofs got put into the code. There was a lot of negotiation, to get something in like this. And one of the things that the fire service wanted was to be able to get off the roof in case there's they need to in a hurry. So they put a 48-inch limit on basically the parapet around the edge of the roof. However, if you're in a high-rise building, you're beyond the reach of the ladder anyway. And so the idea is to say, if you're in a high-rise building, you don't need to, the 48 inches does not apply. This was put forward by the building code, by BCAC, whatever it is, Building Code Advisory Council. And I believe it had the backing of the Fire Code Advisory Council as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
Sorry, this is not the exact language, by the way, that's being proposed at the national level. We interpreted what they were doing as being high-rise buildings.
And this includes members of the public, if anyone has questions or comments.
I don't know. I don't know that I like either of it. I think I like the idea of you being able to put a fence up as high as you want to keep people from getting off the roof.
Sorry, Chris, you're saying you don't like the 48 inches to begin with?
Yeah, I prefer to be able to say, go ahead and put up something that you feel is appropriate for the people you're serving. I mean, for example, we have a 5/2 or type 2 over type 1 building getting built right now in Tacoma that's assisted living and includes memory care. I think I want that thing around their occupied roof to be about 72 inches tall. You know what I mean? Just from a keeping occupants safe. I'm less concerned about.
Absolutely know what you mean, Chris. Thank you for making that comment. I absolutely support that as well. I want at least 6. I don't want 72 inches. I want at least 6 feet.
So I guess my friendly-ish amendment might be number 3, where the safety needs of the occupants deems something else.
That's a little difficult to enforce.
I agree.
What I hear you arguing, quite frankly, is to get rid of the whole thing.
I can understand how, I suppose, people got excited about a tall barrier and wanting to be able to jump off the roof in a fire event, but my personal opinion is that, and I don't know if any chiefs would agree with me, but my personal opinion is that I'm more concerned about keeping people on the building than letting them get off the building from a safety standpoint.
Yeah, I would just add to that in particular with Chris's example, and we're seeing the prevalence of memory care being provided in today's licensed assisted living facilities. A common characteristic or behavior of memory care folks is exit seeking. They get very anxious and don't know where they're at, and they're trying to just leave the situation that they're in. And I mean, I'm a proponent for, going up 6 feet and then even angling in, even going up higher, the surround of a memory care outdoor courtyard that could be on an occupiable roof. Because these folks, although they may be cognitively challenged or have some difficulties, I should say, they often are they can be pretty spry, pretty physically capable, and it doesn't take them very long to climb a 6-foot fence or barrier, if you will.
Yep,
So I have a
seen
comment.
Parkour
Sometimes-
videos of people doing that. easily.
Sometimes it's sometimes hard to, just wipe out a whole code section, then you go, and then you come back later, oh, wow, we shouldn't have, maybe we should have taken this in incremental steps. I would maybe propose as a friendly amendment, adding like a category 3 I occupancies or something like that,
Yeah, I like that idea, Sue. This is Corey.
We could table this too. We've got a couple others tabled so we can work on language. If anyone wants to volunteer to put that language together.
This is Todd. I'd ask, is that really what we're being asked to take action on here, though? I mean, this seems pretty straightforward. What's being proposed here? Is it appropriate to expand the scope?
Yes, we can if we choose to. We can do anything we want within this scope. The way I see it, we've opened up this section.
Okay.
By there being a proposal. So if we want to make further changes, we can, but we can decide as a tag that we're not doing that as well. So
I will suggest that I like Sue's friendly suggestion there. The one challenge I have, Sue, is that now we have licensed residential treatment facilities providing both mental health services and substance use disorder treatment at a huge spectrum. And we're preparing to open up, put those types of licensed healthcare facilities in multiple occupancy types. So while I don't see a lot of RTFs being established in the podium style buildings that we're talking about, I think it could happen. I mean, the need for these types of facilities, both memory care under licensed assisted living and mental health treatment and substance use disorder under RTFs, licensed RTFs is just increasing. So we could certainly see, I just want to make sure that we're not creating a rule that doesn't allow people to provide the protections necessary to keep the population they're serving and responsible for safe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is not changing that part of it
No,
right now.
Well-
It's just you've still got the 48 inches the limit right now in the current code. So, and the only thing that's exempted are the penthouses. All this particular one does, is Todd is kind of saying, is adds the high-rise buildings. You don't need to worry about that 48 inches. This does apply to any building, one to, suppose the high-rise building goes through, essentially between 1 and 7-ish stories, right? So it could be a 1-story if you're using the occupied roof provisions, then which basically allows you to put assembly occupancies above where they ordinarily would be allowed. So this would apply, like say, to any building that's less than 7-ish stories.
So just as another friendly amendment, you could say number 3, I occupancies, or this is a state code, so or state residential treatment facilities. We could define it whatever state, whatever occupancies, including our state defined occupancies, treatment facilities that we would allow that this provision not have to be met, that you could do whatever is deemed as, your safe one.
like licensed care facilities, licensed under chapters, fill in the blanks.
Yeah. So just number 3, I occupancies or licensed care facilities.
Well, my concern is specifically about licensed care facilities. And then I would just fill in the licensing chapters that they're required to follow.
Okay. Yeah. Did you want to
That-
propose a motion? Al?
Yep, go ahead, Al.
Yeah.
Wait, 1 sec. Let me just make sure there's no further discussion, especially from members of the public, because we're asking them not to speak once a motion's made. Any comments or questions from members of the public?
Yeah, I'm presuming I'm a member of the public.
Go ahead, John.
I would suggest maybe looking at the same language, and kind of going back to what Sue said earlier about trying to tailor it to the needs of the population, or someone else said that, maybe it was Chris. If you look at section 10.2.4 about locks and latches on doors, there's a item 2 that says in group I1 condition 2 and group I2 occupancies where the clinical needs of persons receiving care require containment or where person receiving care poses a security threat. And then you may be adopting some kind of language like that if you wanted to kind of limit it again to the people who need to be contained or confined.
Yeah, I like that, John. Or my only concern still, I didn't realize this ended up in the 2015. My concern is still, I don't know, if rooftop decks are more and more used to satisfy outdoor requirements for land use, just for people to have a space to be outdoors. And I'm just thinking of all the different populations served by tall buildings, right? And those populations typically we associate these tall buildings with wealth, right? And people without mental health struggles, but all populations are served by these buildings, including those that may not be in the right headspace to make safe decisions. So I would be concerned about limiting somebody deciding that for the population that's in their building, I want to have a little more secure roof, like I don't know, Tacoma Housing Authority or any of those groups. Those aren't going to be any kind of treatment facility, but they know the needs of their tenants.
And okay, so I'm not in total disagreement with where this kind of headed. I just want to point out again, having been involved in the negotiations on this, the point was that when does this, the concern from the fire service is when does this start counting as an extra story? And I remember arguing with the fire service representative at the time that it only becomes a story if you put a roof over it. But the representative was pretty adamant about no, if that wall gets high enough, then to him it was like creating an extra story. So I'm just for background, and so again the 48 inches was just part of that. Right now you got that same problem, Chris, though, with almost every guard that you got anyway, right? I mean, if you just put up your 42-inch guard.
You do, but nowhere else do we say you can't make your guard taller.
And I've actually I've had the roof deck proposal where they then wanted to add a small section of roof over it because, of course they're up there, they want to be protected from the rain. Yeah. So
that's a whole separate issue.
One of my concerns with this discussion is this the actual proposal in front of us, I think is good, clean, easily approvable, and should be approved. I think as we're messing with it, I think we may muddy the waters and harm the chance of it actually going. It almost seems like we should be recommending approval of this, and then somebody do a new proposal for additional exceptions that then can be part of that other discussion where it's the group I and all these other pieces that we're talking about.
I'd agree with that. If it's okay to do that, what I would recommend is, just as Mike said, we approve this as submitted, assuming that's what people want to do. And we recommend an additional tag proposed amendment where we'll be addressing any additional exceptions or modifications of language. And then that can give us time to put that together.
I like that.
So like moved. That way it doesn't stall this one.
Yep. So, okay, sounds like Todd made that motion. Thank you, Sue. Sue seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? And motion passes. Wonderful. Next, again, interior protection.
Andrew, can we go back to 085?
Yes,
The one that I may gave you a wrong recommendation.
go ahead.
John will show you. John, can you show the summary of? It's a document. Yes. So this is the summary we have on our website. It's based on the bylaws and the WAC, and the highlighted areas. The highlighted area at the bottom specify that the tag right there. Keep it there. So the tag recommend support of the proposal, recommend modifying the proposal, or recommend rejecting the proposal. And what Krista is telling me that it's been going either way, so the tags haven't been consistent, and she suggested that for better clarity, the tag better have another vote, as Andrew suggested, to reject the proposal, just to make it clear. And avoid further complaints.
Okay, thank you, Stoyan. Let's go over this next proposal, and then we'll come back to that in case I know that concerns were brought up about the different types of type 4 construction. So it sounds like this goes along with it, and we'll vote on this, and then we'll go back to a vote on 85.
So we're going to move to 87 then?
Yes. All right, John, did you want to go over this?
Sure. This one is at national. Let's see. This one was approved by the committee. It's G147 for those who track that side of things. So it's taking the again the same testing that was done, and then saying you can expose 100% of the ceiling, essentially, just because they felt that the test results supported that, and the committee did approve this one.
Thank you. Shamim, any comments on this?
Sure, and again, this is similar proposal to the last one, as John mentioned, but this is for the 4B. So all of the concerns I shared about the test still being ongoing, I still have some of those same concerns. This proposal is a little bit different. If you can scroll back up just for a moment, there are parts of it that are actually editorial. So where it says less than or equal to, those are actually positive changes to clarify the language. The part that and obviously there's an expansion of the provision for unprotected ceiling. The entire ceiling can be unprotected, but there's the part in 6024224 here. It's actually removing the requirement for a separation distance between unprotected portions of ceilings and unprotected portions of walls. And the concern I have about that in particular, which didn't apply to the other proposal, because in 4A, all of the walls are protected. In 4B, there is an allowance for 40% of walls to be unprotected. The preliminary results from the Sweden tests did show that compartments with certain quantities of exposed wood can exhibit continuous decay well after what the test duration was, due to those hot spots I mentioned and embers that still are there after flashover. And so that interim report mentioned that the presence of 2 exposed wall surfaces in one corner should be avoided to mitigate that concern. And so in this instance, you may have unprotected walls, and then they're joined by an unprotected ceiling. So I have concerns about removing that 15-foot separation distance between the unprotected portions of mass timber walls and ceilings that's required currently in the code. This point was not raised to the committee at the committee action hearings. We do plan to raise this concern at the public comment hearings.
Thank you. Go ahead, John.
I believe, and it's been a while since I read the test, but I believe the concern was more about facing walls rather than wall to ceiling exposure. Or adjacent walls. And so I believe that was what the report said. And then Shamim, I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong on that. But the other thing I do want to point out is, again, there's no magic to these numbers, okay, that are there in the code right now. I think that's the big thing we need to remember, is that the magic is that that's what they were allowed to expose at the ATF tests back in the TWB days. So sorry, for those of you who weren't involved in those days, the Tallwood Building Committee was involved in helping develop these tests that were performed on a 2-story structure and various scenarios and things like that. And they tested it at the ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms test facility in Maryland. That particular facility had certain limits. They have on the size of, they have a big hood over it to get rid of all the smoke and everything else and heat. And there was some concern from the ATF folks that we'd be burning up their lab if we just did totally unprotected. So they protected a certain amount. They did some calculations to how much heat they thought was going to be released. And so they kept it under that number. So these percentages were put in because that's what that was actually tested. But again, I don't think there's any particular magic to them. That's I just want to emphasize that. Anyway, okay, I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Thank you, John. And I would, I'd agree with that there was no magic. Things were put in very conservatively, and one of the reasons to open this up a little bit more, in fact, both of these proposals, 85 and 87, is just that, the beauty of the CLT, to cover that up when it's not necessary, just takes away a lot of that beauty architecturally. So I like both of these proposals personally, but I don't know if we want to take a straw poll if anyone's going to change their vote based on these two together. If not, there's probably no reason to discuss anymore if we're recommended disapproval of both. I
think, Andrew, maybe on this one, the difference might be that it sounded like this did make it through committee. In the positive. Am I not
It's
seeing
approved as submitted.
Yeah, and whereas the other one did not, if I'm remembering correctly.
That's correct.
So I think there's some substantive difference between the two.
In my opinion, as a type 4B building, we're talking about a totally different animal too than 4A. The whole A component is, essentially covering all the combustible surfaces, whereas B, there's so much that's allowed anyway to be unprotected. Then this doesn't seem to be a problem, in my opinion, with the B.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may throw in my interpretation of the committee and discussion at the hearings was, it was a level of comfort. They were less comfortable opening it up to A than they were doing this with B.
All right, any more discussion for members of the public before I ask for a motion? Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll move forward to BFP as submitted.
Thank you, Sue. Is there a second?
I'll second Todd.
Thank you, Todd. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? And motion passes. So let's do 85 now. So we took a motion for move forward as submitted, and that failed. So we can take another motion.
This is Chris. I would move to not recommend this proposal to the BFP.
Okay, so we'll send it forward recommending disapproval.
There we go. That's the thing.
Thank you, Chris.
This is Corey. I'll second that.
Thank you, Corey. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All those opposed?
No.
Nay.
Sue, you said no?
And-
Yeah, I said no.
And
Okay.
Todd.
Todd, and so we've got 2 no's, Todd and Sue. Are there any other no's? Okay, I don't see a reason for a roll call then. So that motion passes to move it forward with disapproval. Let's see, up next, 116.
I think these are forms. Let me see if I can.
Okay, so this is an appendix P.
Here's the actual proposed amendment.
Okay, so this is a brand new appendix they're proposing, construction and demo material management. Who was the proponent of this? Kinley and Eric, or Eric was the second one, okay. Anyone familiar with this, or should we go through it together? All right, let's go through it together then. So purpose of this code is to increase the reuse and recycling of construction and demo materials for any area greater than 750 square feet or project value greater than 75,000, whichever is more restrictive. Can you scroll? Thank you. So there's some definitions there. Demo material management. To WAC. Salvage assessment shall be submitted prior to permit issuance. Salvage assessment shall identify building components of an existing building that, if removed, have the potential to be reused. Waste diversion report. So it looks like a lot of this stuff is probably very similar to what you've got in some of the green codes, which are either options or in 189.1 requirements there. So yeah, any discussion there? This would be an appendix. It would not be mandatory language, but it would provide a I guess a guidance there for a jurisdiction that wanted to adopt parts of green codes.
It's a new appendix, right? It's not existing.
Correct. It's a new appendix dealing only with. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Oh no, just if the state adopts, if the state accepts this, doesn't that make the state adopt the appendix? So it would apply?
No, it needs to be clarified what the council is adopting.
Okay.
So some appendices, there are a few that are adopted on state level, and the rest of them that are published in the code, they are available for local jurisdictions to adopt. So if we clarify what the adoption is for, I think it will be clear enough.
Okay, so we could do it either way.
The
Yeah,
proposal
think this is-
states that this is an optional, so this is the rationale for this proposal. It's not intended to be mandatory.
So Can a jurisdiction adopt a green code as mandatory? Since that's above and beyond what we have in the state, or is that not permitted?
Well, the green code is not adopted in the state. Some jurisdictions may adopt measures of green code. The approval of the council is required for a residential, 1 and 2
Just
family.
residential.
Family.
Okay. So if a jurisdiction wants this type of guidance, they could adopt. I know Richland, for example, has adopted the IGCC / 189.1, but it's not a mandatory requirement. But if a jurisdiction wants to put green provisions in, they could adopt as a mandatory requirement a green code.
Again, if it's not specific to 1 and 2 family dwellings in multifamily.
Okay, that's my feeling that info's out there. There's no reason for an appendix. I don't see what this adds, but yeah, it's open for discussion.
So I guess my understanding, if this was forwarded through as an optional, the state allows it as an optional appendix, it could be applied for residential.
No, even if it's optional, if a local jurisdiction wants to adopt it for residential, there is a procedure that they need to follow and submit it for approval by the council.
But that's just for, is that just for 1 and 2 family, or is that for, I mean, this is for the IBC.
It doesn't include 1 and 2 family only. It includes multifamily as well. While we are talking about this appendix, I can find the exact language and I can read it.
Yeah, then what would be the point of us going through this process? I mean, you know, because I mean, I actually, I mean, I support this. It's great that there's this language. I mean, there, for some smaller jurisdictions, though, it may be way too hard for, you know, managing, who's going to manage all this information. So that's, you know, that's another thing is, you know, it's okay to require it, but, you know, having to manage that information and, you know, require them to do it and make sure that they're doing it seems kind of hard. So
adoption by the council is needed for single and multi-family buildings. And multi-family buildings in the RCW is defined as common wall residential buildings that consist of 4 or fewer units that do not exceed 2 stories in height, that are less than 5,000 square feet in area, and that have a 1 hour fire resistive occupancy separation between units. This is in the RCW. So one family, single family dwelling and multi-family buildings that meet this definition, they require approval by the council.
But this applies to all other types of construction. So it could be used, if it's an appendix that the state allows, it could be used by a commercial, for commercial buildings, correct?
That's correct.
So it's definitely worth providing. I mean, I think somebody's gone through a lot of work to put this together, and it I think would be great to just say, well, we're just going to adopt appendix, you know, for RPOP, and we're just going to adopt appendix P, so we don't have to write our own sort of policy on this for commercial buildings.
Any other discussion or comments? Again, my comment is that this is already in green code, so the language is already there that can be easily adopted, or the entire code itself dealing with water conservation and green spaces, VOCs, you know, everything else that will be in a green code as well.
Yeah, I echo your comments there. I'm supportive of the intent and the notion of the proposal, but I don't see it as providing benefit.
I guess I disagree. I think it's nice. It compartmentalizes just this one aspect of this, and instead of we're going to take on the whole green code, or we're going to have to, type up our own appendix. It's a nicely packaged into a single appendix, and I know a lot of jurisdictions are looking at reuse. That's just something they can incrementally adopt, and it's part of the IBC, so it would be just something that they can pop in as a single element. So
Okay. Any
And then-
discussion, especially for members of the public?
Well, yeah, there's actually a chat from Stay 225, who is Sherry Taylor from the Washington State Patrol. She's an architect, and she'd mentioned common materials: steel, iron, copper, and PVC piping for recycling. And Sherry, if you'd like, you can discuss that in detail. Did you want to speak about that?
Well, I just, several construction projects, it seems like they're not recycling, and I heard a comment about leaving it up to the local jurisdiction on their codes, ordinances, and I just feel that if we could just, for the state, have some common materials that we want recycled, we might be better off in the long term. A lot of stuff is going to landfills. And I have a big project coming up where there's a lot of piping that's coming out, a huge pump house building, and there's a lot of metal piping that needs to be recycled, but it's not defined. And I hate to see it go to a landfill. It might go to metal recycling, but it has lead-based paint on it. So I'm not sure where it's going yet. It would be nice to define in the codes recycling for old plumbing and other materials that could be reused.
Thank you. You make an interesting point about the lead paint too, where, the costs of demo, if you need abatement, because you're required to recycle certain things, could just get so expensive that you'd have unintended consequences of buildings, especially in, Seattle. It's not an issue. You spend what you need to spend because you can rent space or sell it for so much. But in more rural parts of Washington, you just may not be able to make the numbers work if you've got, expensive abatement requirements. So, but again, it's an appendix. So,
yeah, but I think that's exactly the point, Andrew, is that this is an appendix. So if the local jurisdiction is going to have problems making the numbers crank, then they won't adopt this, or they'll have they can look at this as kind of the model. It's like the model code, right? And then adapt it to whatever they need. But at least some of the work has been done for them. And so I don't think, I don't think that it would do harm as long as the technical stuff is more or less okay, right? I don't think it would harm things if this was approved as an appendix, because again, the local authorities are going to have to adopt it anyway.
Any other comments from folks, especially in the public? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to forward this to BFP as an optional appendices.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second? And we might fail for lack of a second. I thought we had one other.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Let's see, I'm debating. Let's do a roll call vote. Just in case, maybe people just weren't paying attention, or maybe people are opposed to it. We'll find out. So, John, do you mind taking a roll call vote?
Sure.
And this is for moving this as a not a mandatory, but as an optional appendix, as submitted, or moving it forward to BFP with that recommendation.
All right. Sue Kaufman.
Aye.
Knew the answer, but Corey Thomas,
No.
Chris Seaman,
I'll abstain.
and Todd Bayreuther. Todd, you still on?
Yes, yeah, I'm fine sending it to committee. Aye.
Mike Barth,
I'll say aye. It's no harm.
and Al Spalding.
Aye.
So 4 yeses, 1 abstained, and 1 no.
Perfect. All righty. Let's talk custodian. John, what is our schedule? Do we put some stuff on the table? So if we're doing that, I'd like to end now if we've got the time anyway to go through the rest of stuff so we don't go over past 2 o'clock. Otherwise, if we need to get it done now, we can.
No, we have another meeting. Well, we were planning another meeting on July 21st. If we're lucky and get the, quorum. And in addition to these long proposals, big proposals that need to be discussed, we need to discuss the House Bill 1287, I think, electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And I was going to ask the TAC members, so the bill, I mentioned it a few times during different meetings, but the bill was modified with a striker on the Senate floor. And the exception that is currently in the RCW for R3 occupancies was removed. A few council members thought that this means we need to develop language for the building code only. However, we listened to the debate at the Senate floor, and our senators were talking about 1 and 2 family dwellings. So the intent was for 1 and 2 family dwellings, the language doesn't really align with the intent. So my question for you is, do you want to start with discussing the bill itself, or you want me to, or myself or staff, anybody to craft some kind of a proposal? I'm not sure how we can proceed with that.
I always like starting with the bill itself as the basis. If you want to craft something, you can. I don't want to give you a work that.
Well, I
know
don't
you're
want to
busy
start
anyway.
working on something if the idea
Yeah,
is we don't need to go there.
Yeah, let's start by looking at the bill itself.
And the other question I have or comment I want to make is after these meetings that the TAC voted on existing proposals, there are some that was, well, there were some mistakes. There were others that was recommended for, moving forward, readoption. However, the model code covers those. There were others that were recommended as we don't need those, but we do need those because of some model code modifications. So what I was planning to was John and I will work on a document that will have all these proposals. So are you okay with having the entire Word document with all these changes? Or you would like to see similar format with, the same format as we are discussing now? These proposals they're not new, it's just modifications to the code or staff recommendation for the TAC to to change the initial vote. I can't hear you. You're muted, I think.
Sorry about that. I'm fine with the Word documents. If anyone else needs the additional information from the Word documents, we can look up.
Okay. So let's have another meeting on 21st then, July 21st.
Okay,
And for the TAC members, please, if you know somebody who wants to get involved in this, if you can find anybody who will be alternate for you, just please, because it's very important. We have 2-3 meetings max, and we need to get done with all these proposals.
John, if you're able to make the remainder of the meetings and you'd like to officially be on the tag as a vote, I'm sure we can find somewhere that you fit. So think about it. All right, everyone okay adjourning now? Was there anything that you especially were waiting to get to now that you're disappointed that we'll get to next week?
Did
Okay,
we need?
Go ahead, Chris.
Do we need to do something about the Sound Transit, putting a small group together to look at their stuff, or can that wait?
You
talked
have
about
all the
that earlier.
proposals. You have all the proposals. If you can research it in advance, will be better when we get to the exact discussion.
Okay, so we still have time then to recommend. I think we can't put together a group anyway. That's got to come from the full council, correct?
From the full council, yes,
So-
and the first meeting is in September.
Yeah, so we've got time, Chris.
You can recommend it, but it needs to go through the standing committee and then the council. The council needs to make the decision for that.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions?
I just had a comment on the meeting minutes for today. Please add John Sue as a visitor present.
Yes, I'll add him. And then I did have the minutes. I did make the changes to those. So I wanted to just showcase those for everyone to show that the changes are there. So putting Chris in there, Mike in, and Al Spalding as well, and then adjusting it accordingly.
All right, perfect. Anything else for the good of the order? Well, thank you, and we'll talk in 2 weeks.
Andrew, can you stay a little longer? I want to talk to you about something.
Sure. You want me to call you, or you want to talk through here?
Oh, you can stay here. It's not a
Okay.
It's not a
Yeah.
secret.
Stop the recording.
Okay, let me move you in front of here so I'm looking at the camera.